What could be more Swindon Town than to abruptly halt a recent disastrous run that has seen our goal-leaky Reds go from playoff contenders with half an eye on the Autos to mid-table merchants battling against the ghost of the Ken Beamish era to then securing 4 points and consecutive clean sheets from back-to-back home games, including a draw and a win against bona fide promotion contenders, the most recent of whom arrived in SM1, led by the division's free-scoring top marksman and unbeaten away from home all season. Well, the Jekyll and Hyde nature of Town's season may have us fans jousting and cursing over the new certainty of another season in League Two, plus the perceived communication and leadership shortfalls of the club. But for some, there's renewed sunshine amongst the clouds. Well, tonight we're going to take a look at those rays of light. For others, they're just a reminder of yet another storm breaking in Wiltshire. So what side of the fence are you on? Also, have you heard about the bird? Well, panellist Joe has, and much to the annoyance of pretty much everybody, he'll be looking back at and probably singing about all the avian-themed action as our male and female robins pecked at bluebirds, bantams and seagulls, and now prepare for battle versus the Phoenix of Wimbledon and that other set of bluebirds from South Wales. Well, we'll have news of a contract for a star in the making, controversy surrounding the commitment levels of a thus far backup striker, club awards that thumb their tooth at the notion of rotten from top to bottom, contrition from our CEO, and updates from the latest advisory board powwow. Whew. Well, do you want to get involved? Want to get something off your chest? Well, don't sit behind your keyboard moaning that nobody listens to you and that the whole place is rotten to the core. As always, there's an open invite. You can contribute with us via speaker request, DM or tweet. The best of your contributions wins saucy STFC merch for you and yours. And as always, you never know who's listening. But first, a most welcome guest. This lady is one of Swindon Town Football Club's longest commercial partners through her family business, Co-Capital Wealth Management, and she now sits proudly on Swindon Town Football Club's leadership team as the club's newly appointed head of women's football. A very warm Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge welcome to Amanda Coe. Mandy, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, loud and clear, Mandy. You've clearly got a new phone, as befitting for a businesswoman of your stature.
Well, I don't know about that. Going a bit deaf and can't see very well. So.
Well, there's that to it.
Yeah.
Well, there is that too. Well, look, Mandy, I've got a couple of panellists with me tonight, so I'm gonna bring on my support active, Ellis. How are we, Ellis?
Well, I've just been having a look through the questions, and you've done me a bit dirty, Hannah's on one of them.
Well, that's for you to explain to Mandy when you ask her. That's all I'm going to say to you. And Mandy, just in case you decide to get a little bit angry and want to punch below the belt, I will warn you that Ellis is one of Wiltshire's brightest boxing prospects. So be on your best behaviour.
Okay, yeah. I met him Sunday, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
You did.
Oh, yes.
Yep. So a gentle reminder, Mandy, no violence. No. And Joe, good evening to you, pal.
Good evening, mate. Mandy, I'm the one you can punt.
Okay.
Okay, so it
won't be very
bad
hard.
questions, just aim them at me.
Okay.
Well, Mandy, let's we'll dive straight in, shall we? Now we've got the pleasantries out of the way. But before we do, Mandy, obviously you're new to post, so we thought it only right and proper that we give you an opportunity. Please tell the audience, Mandy, a little bit about yourselves for those that don't know you.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm born in Swindon. I've lived here all my life. I'm a really big football fan. And as you say, we've been involved with Swindon Town for many, many years as one of their commercial partners. I actually went to see Swindon for the first time when I was 9 years old. So that's nearly 50 years ago now. So I've seen a lot happen over the years. And so we've been coming for a very long time. I love going to football. And when I got the opportunity last year, when Rob and Clem approached me and asked me if I'd like to help to integrate the existing women's football team into the main club, and I was absolutely thrilled and honoured that they'd asked me to help them with that. So I've been working with the existing committee, working on the transition and planning of what it's going to look like for the future. So there's been a lot of planning in the background, which is why it's taken us a long time to get to this point. And then just recently, they've asked me if I would like to head up the group, which I'm doing at the moment. I'm glad to say that all the existing committee have stayed along, and I'd like to thank Martin, Roger, Tim, Steve and Laura that are helping me continue in all new roles. Some of them are similar as the old roles, but they're all helping us to make a success of this, and it's just really exciting. As I'm really honoured to be part of it, and it all looks really bright and really exciting.
Well, you're really honoured to be part of it, obviously meaning the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge. And of course, it is very exciting, Mandy, being part of it. And we're delighted to have you along with us, Mandy. But no, all joking aside, congratulations on the formal, for want of a better word, appointment to post, Mandy. And we wish you all the very best as well. I think anyone that was attending the game on Sunday will testify. It's exciting times for the Women's Football Club. I don't think, from a facilities point of view, kit point of view, coaching point of view, I don't think they've ever had it so good in terms of investment and forward strategy. So best of luck with everything, Mandy.
Thank you.
And best of luck tackling some of these listener questions, because I tell you what, they're gonna put you on the rack, this bunch.
Right.
So are you ready?
I'm ready. Go on.
Well, the first one is, Mandy, if we're nice to you and your husband, will you pay off our mortgages?
Oh, I'd like to say that I'd like that to do that for everybody.
Right, did you hear that, everyone? Joe, Ellis, everyone that's listening, I'm not
able to do that, but I would love to be able to do that for everybody. Yeah, that would be great.
My heart's just dropped there.
I genuinely thought we pulled off a masterstroke, Joe.
No.
I thought we pulled off an absolute entertainment masterstroke and finally feathered our nest.
No, that would be a pleasure if I was able, but unfortunately, no.
Well, Mandy, the next question is from Joe's going to fire at you, but you've sort of answered it a little bit, but we're going to want the dirty detail from you. Fire away, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, so obviously, Mandy, the first part of this question you kind of answered already. So where did you grow up, and what is your earliest Swindon town memory?
Right. I actually was born in 1963, in the middle of the worst winter that I think they've experienced for many years, in a house in Park North in Swindon. So my mum and dad had just moved with all that mass exodus from London, and they were only here about 4 days, and my mum went into labour. So it was one of those kind of like call the midwife experiences, that the midwife had to arrive on a bike through the snow to deliver me. So I went to Park North Junior School. I spent most of my childhood living in Aldine. I went to Dorking School, and then I moved to Stratton when I first got married, and I've lived in Leiden, and at the moment I live in Broomall Lane. So I actually only live about 2 miles away from the house that I was born in. So I haven't gone very far. So
a home girl you certainly are.
I am a real Swindonian.
And your earliest Swindon town memory,
right?
Mandy, that you can remember?
I was 9, about. I think it's about 1974, and my dad took me along to a match, and I remember that Don Rogers was playing. I don't remember much about the match because I was so young, but Don Rogers was playing, and I remember a very good-looking young man called David Moss that I was very attracted to as a 9-year-old, and that was it, really. So after that, I came as often as I possibly could. And then as a teenager, when I had my own money and when I started work at 16, my then boyfriend, who's now my husband now, and I bought season tickets, and we travelled all around the country till we had our children in our early 20s, all away matches, all home matches. So, I mean, we've really had a fantastic time, really. It's gone up and down, as we know. As a supporter of Swindon, life does go up and down, but I've just got some fantastic memories. Luckily, I was there, I think it was 1980 when we famously beat, is it 79 or 80, when we famously beat Arsenal 4-3 in the old wooden Stratton Bank, as it was there, Shrivenham Road, should I say, as it was then. Queued up for 2 hours to get in, so that was a marvellous day. I remember that. I don't know where to start. So many things. Obviously, the 1993 match was fantastic when we got promoted, and I was able to take my 9-year-old daughter to that one, which was a pleasure.
What were your memories of Wembley, Mandy? Because obviously we're fast approaching the 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
What are your? I mean, it feels like yesterday to me. I mean,
Mm.
I can't believe it's been 30 years. But I mean, what's your favourite memory from '93?
Do you know, one of the favourite ones was probably having my daughter with me. She was 9 at the time, and I just remember her little face. She had her Swindon top on, and you know, we walked up Wembley Way, and it was just a fantastic day. So I remember my mother-in-law chasing Jimmy Greaves he was out in the concourse, and she chased him up the concourse to complain because he'd made a derogative comment about Swindon earlier on on the TV, which is quite amusing. Yeah, I mean, it was just a fantastic day. I mean, just all the way there, and then coming home in our cars, and all the bridges leading up to Swindon were just you know, absolutely full of Swindon fans. We lived at Elding at the time, so we arrived back via the Sun Inn, and we took us ages just to get up the road because the road was full of people, and it was like we were the players and we'd won the cup, you know, kind of banging on the car and screaming and shouting at the pub. It was just a wonderful time. Yeah, it's really great.
Oh, outstanding. And do you have any memories? Do you have any sort of favourite memories of Glenn Hoddle? I don't like to pick one player from that brilliant team, but
I remember saying to somebody that he held a door open for me once. I remember it sounds a bit weird, but it was very exciting at the time. I'd queued up to get tickets for a match. I can't even remember which match it was. And then we drove up to the car park the same time as he did, and he opened the door for me to let me out. So that was quite thrilling. So yeah, I mean, he was just a great manager, probably one of the best memories. And when he and John Gorman decided to leave, I remember standing with a big sign saying, "Please don't go," as everybody did, down at Coatwater as they were going round on the coach, or the bus, should I say, on top bus, celebrating our promotion. And at the time, we thought they weren't going to stay. So, which obviously they didn't. So yeah, no, so that was great. I mean, just fantastic memories, really. So I'm really lucky to have had them, and I hope all the new fans will get the opportunity to experience that type of thing as well. So
yeah, it's been we've had more down and up since then, that's for
yeah.
sure. And in many ways, with your business hat on, Mandy, I'm sure you will testify that. I mean, many people think that we're still paying for the excesses of that era now, but there's big hope. But we'll get onto that later, Mandy.
Yeah.
We'll get onto that. We'll keep our powder dry, because Ellis has got a little flex for you, haven't you, Ellis?
Okay.
Yeah, this is a wonderful question, and I just want to stress I did not write this. This was not me that wrote this question. Okay, Mandy.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a big deal. Do you know who I am?
No.
Ellis, you're so big-headed. Come on now.
I know,
I
yeah,
met you
sorry,
the
everyone.
other day, didn't I? I met you.
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
there
yeah.
you are. So I do know who you are. So
Yeah, you do know me.
Yeah.
Big deal, Ellis flexing around Foundation Park.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I've got another question for you, and this is from another one of our lovely listeners who says, Mandy, which dragon are you most like?
Which dragon am I most
As
like?
in Dragon's Den, I believe that must be, because I don't believe they're talking Welsh dragons or any other dragons.
Which one am I most like? Actually, I don't know, because I'm quite a softie, really. So I can't. I'd struggle if anyone. I mean, I don't know really. Who's the blonde lady? That I can't remember her name off the top of my head now.
Well, Joe, that might bring you in for your question.
Who's the one that does the crafting? The northern lady that does all the crafting.
Deborah Meaden?
No, not Deborah. The other lady, the younger one. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm more like her. I think she's a bit of a softie. She's if she gives sort of feedback, it tends to be quite nice. She's not as ruthless as the others, I don't think. So
an iron gauntlet in a velvet glove.
Yeah, possibly. But yeah, I like her. Well, I like them all, actually. I mean, they're obviously really successful people. You know, but yeah, she's quite nice. I can't think what her name is at the moment. So yeah, I don't really watch it too much anymore, to be honest with you. So I don't know who's on it. It keeps changing all the time, doesn't it?
We'll get Ellis, our resident Googler, beavering away in the background to try and get a few names for you, Mandy.
She's the crafting queen, but I can't. Yeah, so that's one of her businesses, I know.
Well, from one crafting queen to another, Joe, please move us along.
Yeah, so sticking on the Dragon's Den
Yeah.
sort of vibe a bit, who would win in an arm wrestle, you or Deborah Meaden?
Oh, I think it'd be me. I'm quite competitive, so I'm quite competitive, so I'd probably give that a good go. And I used to throw the javelin when I was younger, so as long as it's with my right arm, I've got quite a strong right arm. So.
Oh, spearing people with a javelin as
Yeah.
well. We definitely don't want to get the right. Ellis, I'm really sorry, mate. As long as your arms are and as good as your jab is, don't like the idea of you with gloves taking on Mandy with a javelin.
No, I don't back myself with that. To be fair.
Yeah. Ellis, you've got the next one. This is also Dragon's Den related by the look of it.
Okay. Well, I've got an answer. Sarah or Sarah Davies.
Yeah.
That's the crafting.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right. That's her. Yeah.
Right. So moving on to my question, isn't it true the lift in Dragon's Den is gracious and a waste of resource?
Gratuitous and a waste of resource.
Sorry, I can't read.
Yeah, it's all part of the drama, isn't it? It's a bit like Alan Sugar doing the whole "you're fired" lark, isn't it? Really. So it's just part of it. It'd be a bit boring if you didn't have the lift, wouldn't it? Really.
If you were advising them on how best to save some money, though, you'd probably bin that off, wouldn't you? Let's be honest.
The lift, I don't know, because then they'd have to find more people, wouldn't they? Because that takes up a few minutes of the programme, doesn't it? Getting people up and down. So
cheap padding, we call that cheap padding.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we've got some patter and some cheap patter coming up for you, but again, Mandy, we'll keep our powder dry, because my question for you is this.
Yeah.
Mandy, please tell us your funniest story from your time as a club sponsor.
Oh, funniest time of my... let me have a think.
Because that lounge can be debauched.
Yeah, it can. Do you know, I'm struggling. I might have to come back on that one for a minute. I can't think. It sounds like it's quite boring, doesn't it? So...
No. Yeah. Please just have a little percolate. Have a percolate on that, Mandy.
There must be something over the years, but yeah, so we do have fun in there occasionally. So... yeah.
I can think of a couple of faces that you and I both know, Mandy, that'll be sitting there with beads of sweat on their forehead right now.
Yeah. I'll have to think about that one and come back to you. I'm struggling.
Right. We'll sit tight on that one. Joe, move us along.
Yeah.
Moving along. So obviously you've been a town fan for such a long time. Have you ever stuck into the gents in the town end when the queue for the ladies' cubicle is too long? Also, if you have, how bad was it?
No. Do you know, I'm going to be honest, I've only been in the town end once in
really?
all of the time. I was used to be in Shrivenham Road when it was the old wooden stand, and then when it closed, used to enjoy that one, and then when it closed after the Bradford fire, because obviously it was a wooden one, we then moved over to the Arkle stand, and we never sat anywhere else but Arkles, to be honest. Occasionally in Stratton Bank, when there was a big match, but I've only ever been in the town end once. So... and
wow.
Well, Mandy, in the words of Uncle Argyle from Braveheart, this is something we shall have to remedy.
Yes.
And I would be absolutely over the moon if you would accept myself and Joe and Ellis's invite to join us in the town end for Crawley.
Yeah, go on then.
Yes. There we are, ladies and gentlemen. Town's new head of women's football will be behind the goal in the town end for Crawley.
Yeah.
And we want nothing but the loudest singing from you, Madam Coe. Nothing but the loudest from you.
Got a little bit of a frog in my throat tonight, actually, because I was doing a lot of shouting last night, actually.
Very good.
I try to be quiet, but I find it very difficult. So
no, this all bodes well. Don't worry, this all bodes well. Well, actually, Ellis is going to make you work a bit hard with the next question. This is quite a rangy one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you might want a pen and paper for this one, but give us your STFC all-time 11.
STFC all-time 11. Oh,
that can be men and women.
Talk about a tough question.
Yeah, that is crikey.
It's never a good one to be put on the spot with, I find, but it throws up some spontaneous surprises.
Yeah, I mean, probably goalkeeper, just because those were probably the best years that I remember. Was probably Fraser Digby, to be honest, because they were great. They were great times, and I got really fond memories of that sort of era. I'm going to have to go all over the place here because I can't. 11. I'm going to go. So going back to the kind of 70s, 80s, obviously there was people like Chris Kamara, who was just such a personality. Up the front and sort of midfield, it would have been Alan Mays and Andy Rowland, because again, those years had really kind of special memories, really. I obviously Don Rogers is a legend, but I don't really remember many of his games, because even though I'm 60 now, I was quite young when he was playing. Oh crikey, how many have I got there then? So that's 5. Obviously Jan Argafjortov. I mean, he was just a legend, wasn't he? And
So Andy, we're going to go Andy Rowland up front with Jan
yeah.
Argafjortov.
Oh well, that would have been interesting, wouldn't it? So yeah, he was great. So where have I got? I'm defenders now, aren't I? That I haven't. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who would I go defence? Colin Calderwood obviously would be one of my. Or he's more midfield, wasn't he, really? But yeah, Colin Calderwood. And I've always really had a soft spot for both Nathan Thompson. He's like a real Swindon boy, isn't he? And a real gentleman as well. So Nathan would definitely.
He always gets overlooked, Mandy, in people's perfect 11s, but I think that's a valid choice.
No, because Nathan was always there, and he's a real gentleman, isn't he? And obviously Louis was there as well. 1, 2, 3. Oh, am I nearly there? How many do I need? Oh God, there's so many to choose from, isn't there? Obviously, I'd stick Glenn Hoddle in there somewhere as a player manager, and he was amusing when he was here. I know he didn't play very often, but Neil Ruddock, when he came to play with us, I didn't know I actually played, but he was always a bit of a character. So. Yeah.
So you throw him in for amusement factor. Interestingly enough, Matt,
he was a great guy.
Obviously,
he was a great guy.
Obvious reasons. Yeah. For obvious reasons, Razor gets absolutely hammered. By the majority of Swindon Town fans. But I'll tell you what's really interesting is when you talk to people like Sam Parkin about the impact of Neil Ruddock behind his signing and then his settling in period at the football club. Like Sam he is absolutely adamant that the role that Razor played in setting up what then became a very, very successful playoff team, and obviously only fell a very, very final hurdle there. Well, the penultimate hurdle if you include a semi, but obviously right at the death in the semi-final of the playoffs. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't think time will ever necessarily be a healer, but I do get what you're saying from an entertainment point of view.
He was quite intense. And then I mean, there's just so many, isn't there? Really, I mean, you forget, don't they? The names crop up sometimes, and then you think, oh, obviously Matt Ritchie was there. Names crop up, and you think, blimey, yeah, they did play for Swindon. You kind of forget there were so many. And even the managers as well. We've had so many good managers over the year, haven't we? So, big names that have been involved with Swindon. So it's quite surprising how many there is. So
I'll tell you what, Mandy, a manager that I would have loved, I'd love your views on him as well from you, because I appreciate, given your longevity as a commercial partner, you would have had contact with him. Yeah. But you mentioned Neil Ruddock, but Roy Evans was always a personality that really impressed me.
Yeah, there was. There's just so many personalities, isn't there? Really, I mean, one of the biggest personalities for me, and he was a bit like Marmite, was actually Paolo, wasn't it? People did actually like him or dislike him. He was certainly good for. I mean, he's certainly good for entertainment value. If the football wasn't going that well, then you just needed to watch him. He was enough entertainment on his own. So.
Yeah. Yes, and say a Marmite character, and we talked at the start, didn't we, about the sort of people suggesting our golden era, Lou McCarthy, Les Hodge, we're still picking up pieces now, but I've got to say that obviously he was no stranger to the checkbook, Paolo, was he?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah. So yeah, although he did well with it though. So. But I think we've learnt the lesson that you can't always, throwing money at things isn't always the answer, is it? So,
got to manage your wealth. Funny you should say that, Mandy. Funny you should say
absolutely.
That. What's So, Mandy, here's a more serious question.
Yeah.
And it is what is your view? Well, it says first of all, Mandy, welcome. It says welcome to Swindon Town Football Club, but obviously you've been here a very long time.
Yeah.
But it says, what is your vision for women's football in Swindon?
Well, my vision is the same as Clem and Rob's and anyone else that's involved with women's football, which is for us to get up the leagues as quickly as possible. and to make football more accessible to everybody and for more women and girls to want to play football. I mean, I've got to be honest that I've always concentrated on the men's football. When I was at school, you know, you played netball as a woman. You didn't, you know, football wasn't an option. But I've got a granddaughter who's 11 that plays football. I've had nieces that have been involved in women's football, and and after I sort of changed my view on women's football when I think it was 2019 when we had the England and Spain match at the county ground, and it was just absolutely chock-a-block. You know, you couldn't get a seat, you couldn't get a ticket, and it was just a wonderful evening. And seeing all the families there enjoying themselves is just absolutely lovely. And obviously it was real quality football to watch as well. Then the Lionesses. And I just think it's really important that football and the county ground becomes a place that families want to come to. And it's just not, I mean, obviously the men's football is really, really important to me as well. But I do want women's football to be accessible to everybody to come along and enjoy. I mean, you were there a couple of weeks ago when we played Southampton. We had over 500 people there. It was just a wonderful afternoon. And, you know, in Swindon, we have got the fan base. We have got people that want to come out and watch football. And what we'd like to do is make those days as family orientated and a good day out as possible. You know, with the purchase of the county ground, we need to get people in there and using the facility, and we want people to come along. And by having a successful women's football team as well as a man's football team, then everyone will want to come along, hopefully, and enjoy a good day out. And that's what we need. So obviously the ambition is to get us up the leagues as quickly as possible. I think that the people in the background that have been running the club, you've got people like Martin Wheeler and Roger Reeves that have been involved with this club for like 25 years. I really want to make it work for them as well. You know, they've spent so much time on this. It would be nice for them to be able to see a benefit of all the years that they've put in as well. So it's really important to me that I do what I can to support those people as well, because I want them to be able to see that the club is successful. I mean, it's been successful anyway. It's in Tier 4, you know, the Division 1. But if we can get it promoted as soon as possible, I think it just gives us that good feel factor around the whole club and in Swindon. Because there's not, I mean, there's lots of people live in Swindon, and I'm aware that there's not lots of people that like football. You know, that's why we sort of have 11,000 people come every game. Well, hopefully as much as that. But, you know, we don't attract everybody in, but by having a women's team as well, we might attract another whole load of fans that we've never attracted before. And it definitely, when the team's going well, you can feel the buzz. I mean, going back to the few times when we've been at Wembley, there's such a buzz. There's so many people that go, you know, there's like 40,000 people that are travelling up there. So there is the interest in it. So that's what's important to me, really, is to get us promoted and make.
I think the big thing as well. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Mandy.
No, carry on.
I was going to say, it was interesting you saying about the women's game, especially at Swindon at the minute, being fairly family orientated. I think that's something that I've noticed most at the women's games is, you know, the amount of children that are there with their parents, and it's probably a little bit more of a gateway into Swindon town, rather than going into, you know, a stadium of 9,000 people where it's quite heated and it might be a little bit daunting for a child. I think, you know, having the women's team, especially playing at the county ground, it's a really good way for kids to get involved with the football club and sort of ease their way into supporting Swindon, as well as obviously getting behind the girls and sort of getting to know both sides of the football club as we are becoming one.
Yeah.
I mean, I think speaking personally, Mandy, I mean, I've been very, very vocal about the fact I've been on a very, very steep learning curve in relation to the women's game. I had a fascinating conversation with Alice Bowden. Hello, Alice. I see Alice has joined us tonight. She's listening.
Hi, Alice.
I had a wonderful conversation with Alice over breakfast a few weeks back. Annie and Lanes have been brilliant personalities for us to get involved in, who were the first two athletes that we chose to sponsor much earlier in the season. And I think the thing that really excites me, I mean, my message to anybody that would be listening in, that maybe is following a similar journey to me, where I was all about the men's team. And I was probably about as interested in our women's team as I would be. And I've not changed my narrative on this at all. These are exactly the words I've been using all season. I'm the sort of guy that if I walk through the park and there's a game of football on, I will sort of like, take a very, very long, hard look as I'm walking past it. But I really need the football that really engages me is the football that's played on the county ground estate. And I think the first thing is seeing the ladies playing on the county ground estate. I think is critical for me because there is something magical about being at that venue, whether that be Foundation Park, as I found at the weekend, or indeed in the county ground. And B, get to know these personalities, like the characters that make up our squad, Mandy. And I'm sure you'll vouch for this in the relatively short time that you've been involved sort of directly with the girls. They're a brilliant bunch of personalities, aren't they? Literally from top to bottom. They're a fantastic group of human beings.
They are. And the friends that I go to football with, so there's kind of 10 of us, most of them are now coming along to watch the women's football as well. And they came along to Southampton. A few of my friends were there on Sunday at the match. And one of the things that we all remarked on with the women is they just never give up. It's just like from the moment the whistle blows until it finishes, the game finishes, they just never stop. They're always running, they're always making an effort, and even if they get injured or they fall, they're back up on their feet and off they go again. And I really admire them for that. And it's actually really good quality football, which, like you, has really kind of surprised me. And I've only noticed it over the last 4 or 5 years that how good women's football is. So and how
listen, Mandy seconded on the quality of football. I mean, the game on Sunday was very, very scrappy, but I think that was a lot to do with the fact that you had two very competitive teams. Just basically, it was like watching. I think I remarked on the commentary. It was like watching a Rocky movie in the latter stages where you had two heavyweights just literally punching, almost like going punch for punch. It literally felt like that. It was it was breathtaking to try. Like you literally, I was running out of breath, which is quite hard. It's quite hard for me because I can talk the hind legs off a donkey. But I think in terms of what you were saying about the competitors, I mean, it was ferocious on Sunday. And when the ladies were leaving the pitch, I mean, my overriding memory of the weekend was Emily McGrogan in an absolute funk of rage because she'd lost her clean sheet right at the end. And you literally could not approach her. She was absolutely livid. And equally at the other end of the pitch, Annie Colston just absolutely raging because she had just worked her socks off and just hadn't got the break of the ball in the 18-yard box. So, if there's anyone that might have any doubts that it's all a little bit powder puff, forget that because it was ferocious. And Lucy Durham's ankle will speak absolute volumes for that. As indeed will Jen Gray's red card. Jen, I'm sure you're listening in, and we all, I know you don't want me to keep talking about it, Jen, but hey, So they don't pull their punches, is what I'm trying to say, Mandy. Do
no, absolutely not. And I say it's just never stop. From start to finish. There's just so much energy and passion, and it's just really good to see. So,
Mandy, the same person that posed that question about your vision has just also DM'd and said, Mandy, how difficult was it to part company with popular management duo James Lally and Keelan Panayiotou?
How difficult was it? Well, I have to say I don't know James and KP personally, but I mean I don't think it was an easy decision for anybody. One of the things that we did notice immediately, I only sort of got involved with this just before December, is how difficult it is to get out of this particular league. And it needs to be looked at. It's not right that only one team gets, that's able to go up. You've got that sort of bottleneck, and it's just not acceptable, really. There needs to be a chance. I feel. I know logistically that you've got these 4 divisions because it's difficult to travel around, and there's constraints of money, and I understand all of that. But for only one team to be able to get promoted out of the division in the year is quite harsh. So I think we just felt that the best chance of being able to get out of the league was to get a more qualified coach in, and therefore that's why Mike Cook was actually appointed. And then we're aware that there's lots of teams out there in tier 3 and tier 4 that are beginning to put money into football. And we had to kind of do something now before we had the opportunity to you know, before we lost the opportunity, if you like, before other teams sort of beat us to it, if you like. But I hope that they do begin to look at it, and you do have a kind of playoff scenario, because it is really harsh that there is only one opportunity. Yeah. So I feel I know I've heard that they were very passionate, and I do sympathise with them a lot. So obviously you'll know them better than I do, and I think if we could have done it any differently, but it was just a decision that was made that we needed to, if we were going to do it and put as much effort and as much money behind it as we possibly could at this point, it seemed like that was the right thing to do. So,
and tough. One of those decisions. I'm guessing, Mandy. If the club are promoted next season, people will look back on and go, yeah, obviously, right thing to do. But at the same time, yeah, obviously, I'm guessing certainly when it comes to volunteer staff, it's never an easy decision to make when you're letting people go that have been, giving up so much free time.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're aware that, but all of the managers have given up all their free time. They've spent money on this, as has all the volunteers, and I'm doing this as a volunteer as well. So, I appreciate that everybody's given up their time. So it's really not easy at all, and it's not. It's not. I don't think it'd be easy in any circumstance. I'm sure it's not easy if you're letting go of anybody, whether it be any of the managers in the main club or anything. It's never a very pleasant experience, is it? So, no. Yeah. So it's just
all right.
Yeah.
Well, moving us along, Joe's got the next question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I do indeed. So the next question I've got, if my phone actually loads. There we are. Sorry about that. So, who has caught your eye the most in your short time of head of women's football? Any players that have really sort of stuck out to you? I mean, you've got the likes of Annie Colston, who's
Annie, obviously,
particular favourite.
Yeah, Annie, and Emily is a really good player. There's lots of them, to be honest.
We have got the captain, Alice Bowden.
I can say
probably mention
Alice and Rianne on Sunday. In fact, they all had a good game on Sunday, didn't they? I thought all of them did. Let me think. Who else would that?
I think, Mandy, the thing that I really admire about sort of anybody in the women's game that have gone away, had a child, and then come back to the women's game. But Rianne's story this season for me has been absolutely jaw-dropping, because the speed of which Rianne's gone from having a child to then, going, through a rehab program to then getting back on the pitch, but not just back on the pitch, but like lung-busting performances like what we've seen over the last couple of weeks. That's incredible. It will never, guys will have, male footballers will have serious injuries, and we talked about this on Sunday. And people coming back from sort of ACL injuries, broken legs, etc. But obviously, it's unique to the women's game. The notion of coming back from childbirth, and Mandy, you'll know yourself, having had sort of multiple children. It's the notion of getting back to sort of strenuous exercise it's not. No. I mean, it's not easy, is it? No. Especially at the level that these ladies are operating at, because tier 4 is we're not talking. This isn't kids football, is it? At the end of the day, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
And it's more than that as well, because I'm aware that some of these ladies are they are mothers. So they've also got the logistics of looking after kids, going to training sessions. So, it's a real commitment, isn't it? It's not, it's not like if I wanted to pop to the gym, or I like Peloton. If I want to do a Peloton at home, I can do it when I like. They can't. They've got to turn up on Tuesdays and Thursdays for training. They've got to turn up on Sundays. And I really admire them for that, because it's not easy when you've got families and you've got work and you've got to look after a home, and you've still got to do the shopping, and you've still got to do these other things as well. So I really admire them for that. And and you could just see both Rianne's performance on there. You wouldn't have thought that she'd not, long ago had a child, really, would you? So, yeah.
Literally a few months ago, we were in the commentary box at the county ground commentating over the Plymouth game. Rianne was on co-coms, and there she was nursing a child, and she was talking to me about the pipe dream of coming back. And then there I was, sat on Sunday, just watching the most incredible powerhouse midfield performance,
Yeah.
and I was gobsmacked. So, and funny enough, there she is. Rianne's listening. Good evening to you, Rianne.
Oh.
You're very welcome. It was brilliant seeing you Sunday, and congratulations on the rehab, Rianne. So what we got? Oh, Ellis has got the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, this one's a good one. What's your most shameless ever corporate blag?
My shameless ever corporate. Oh my god. Wow. I don't know really. I'm not. Do you know what? I'm not very good at lying. Anyone would tell you that if I get in an uncomfortable situation, I'm giving something away now, I start humming. So people know when I'm bothered, or when I'm bothered about something, I start humming or like singing, and I'm just not very good at lying. So I just can't think of anything. So
well, we've got that at it now.
yeah,
That's
but you'll know now if I'm humming that I'm not comfortable or I'm not saying something. Do you know something that we've got? I've always said to my kids, and it's something that we say. I just say, and it's probably got nothing to do with that, but one of the things that I say to my kids is, like, as they were growing up, that if you don't lie, you haven't got to have a good memory. And that's how I feel about that. So I can't think of anything that I've done. I mean, I do stupid things occasionally, and I'm quite clumsy.
What about looking at this a slightly different way, Mandy? What about, in terms of corporate blag, from a point of view of blagging your way onto something particularly like a piece of hospitality or any kind of corporate junket that you might have ended up finding yourself on as a result of maybe overplaying your hand? Or
see, I'm no good at that. Now my husband would be great at that sort of thing, and I'm sure he has done it in the past, but I'm the last one that would want to, if I thought somebody wanted to do something, I'd push them up the front and I wouldn't do it. If I was playing a game and I thought somebody wanted to win it more than me, I'd let them win it. I'm not very good at things like that, so I sort of prefer to sit in the background, really, and let other people take the credit.
I've got a brilliant one, Mandy.
Yeah.
Would you like to hear mine?
Go on then.
So as a bona fide chocoholic,
Yeah.
I once I like golf, but it's not the sort of thing that I would go to as a spectator. But let's just say I was guest of a very, very well-known car manufacturer at Wentworth.
Okay.
And I was walking around their equivalent of, if you're an F1 fan, the paddock, but the golf equivalent, and I noticed that there was a fenced off area for that was sponsored by Lindor. So you imagine now you got a chocoholic looking at the Lindor area at the golf, and suffice to say, I can't quite remember the way that I blagged myself in, but I did manage to blag my way in. And I walked out. I had a rucksack with me because I was told bring a rucksack for the day at the golf, and I literally left with my rucksack filled from top to bottom with Lindor goods that I had absolutely no business having. So that was a pretty good corporate blag.
Yeah.
There I was, all suited and booted, and I've managed to literally lie my way into the Lindor tent. That's how much I like chocolate. And walk out with a load more of it. How about that?
Yeah, I'd be frightened to steal something because I would think that I would be the one that would get caught every time.
Oh, can I point out that I didn't steal the chocolate? Can I just point that out? I know. I politely told them. I said to them that I think it was something to do with, or I gave them a name and said I'm a guest of such and such. And before I knew the rope,
you didn't do it, Ellis Hanners. You didn't go. Well, don't you know who I am?
Yeah, do you know I'm kind of a big deal. Yeah, I'm a big deal. No, it was along those lines. It was like, oh, I'm with such and such, and the security guard just opened the rope, and in I walked, and I wandered around, and it was a bit boring. But they had an help yourself, have as much as you like, and I walked out of a rucksack full of Lindor. I had no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. Now I feel like I'm a thief.
Oh no, sorry, I'm not saying you're a thief.
Well, I don't know. I think you might be.
Yeah, no, I can't think. I say I get quite nervous with things like that. I'm not very good in situations like that. So I think I've got one of my nieces that's just come up on my phone, so she must be listening. She might be able to tell you something. So I can see her picture there, Emmy.
Yeah. There you go. Well, I've got another question for you. So this one said, with the women's team boasting so much unpaid talent, Mandy, how do you propose going about keeping your best players from your wealthy competitors further up the leagues?
Well, one of the things that we've introduced this season is when Clem was quite surprised when he first we started having conversations about the team. He didn't realise that the women paid a sub. He didn't kind of get that people played subs in football to play football, basically. He didn't know this was a thing. So one of the first things that he did when he recognised that was to say, right, well, first of all, I don't want anyone to have to pay a sub to play for Swindon. And then we started looking at what we could do within the constraints. Obviously, we had to go out and find sponsors, and we've had some great sponsors that have come forward, actually.
So yes, you have. Very good sponsors indeed.
We have, and I have to say that all of the main sponsors that have been around for a very long time have been really helpful and really wanting to do things for the women, which is brilliant. So getting back, so one of the things we were going to do was, obviously now the girls don't have to pay subs. Their kit for the first team will all be paid for, their training kit and everything. We've started arranging for them to get travel. If they're staying over, if they're travelling more than, I think it's 3 hours, I think we decided, then they would get overnight stays. And we try and give them a similar offering to what the men get in terms of travel and overnight stays, etc. Obviously, there's constraints with how much more we can do, because until we build up the fan base, you know, it was lovely to get 520 people there at the match the other week, but there was a sponsor that came forward and actually paid for 130 tickets. So that was what, and we gave them out to grassroots clubs, and they came along and brought their children along. But obviously at the moment we don't get anything like those numbers. So the money, if you like, the takings that come in through the gates are not as big as what we need to be able to offer more. So at the moment, what we can do is just offer things that are a point of difference to what other clubs do. I mean, even when we was talking to a few family from Portishead match, and obviously the family had travelled up from Cardiff. They don't kind of get anything. They were asking what happens at Swindon. Someone was explaining that. So that's the point of difference that we've got at the moment. And obviously Swindon is a big club in comparison to a lot of other clubs around. And if we've got those 5 games that we've got at the county ground next year, if we can get sort of 500 or more people in there, then that means that we're able to bring more money into the club. And then going forward, we might be able to spend even more money on people. But at the moment, it's the offering, you know, being able to play at the county ground. When Southampton came up, they brought quite a lot of people with them. And people told me it was the first time that they played on a professional pitch. So it's things like that that are going to attract people. You know, there's a big difference with playing out I don't know, at Fairford and playing at the county ground, obviously. So that's what's going to attract people to want to play.
Mandy, sorry, obviously not everybody knows sort of next season exactly how much they expect to see the women's team at the county ground. Would you just like to clarify that for people?
So at least 5 of the home games will be at the county ground next season. So and then the remainder of them will be at the foundation, or we may be doing a kind of Swindon Town Women on the Road type of thing. So we might pick a club that's nearby that we know that's got a big offer, that got a big following. They come into Swindon and watch games just so that they get an opportunity for their fans to go out and watch them as well. But at least 5 games will be played on the county ground next season.
Outstanding. So I think we're all sort of unified, Joe, Ellis, aren't we? We've been saying that from a supporter's perspective, it's critical really from our perspective in terms of engaging with the team, that I said right at the start, it has to be on the county ground estate, doesn't it, really, for us?
Yeah.
Ultimately, like, the county ground is Swindon Town's home, and we are now one club. So ultimately, it's both sides' home, isn't it?
Absolutely.
That's the be all end all, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So.
Well, Joe, move us along.
Yeah, me up next. Mandy, I appreciate you're not on the pitch bursting a lung like the ladies are.
Well, I burst a lung at football, but yeah, I'm not running around like they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
In preparation for your lung busting chanting and maybe complaining this season, potentially, allegedly, in the Arkle stand, what is your match day breakfast of choice?
Oh, do you know what? I don't eat a lot. I get really nervous. So the people that I sit with will vouch this. Even though you get a meal in the lounge where we are, I very rarely eat it. I just get really nervous. I don't know why.
I'm the complete same.
I just can't eat anything. So I don't have anything for breakfast. I can't drink an alcoholic drink. I just get really nervous. So
I could do an alcoholic drink, but I'm not too sure I could do a full meal.
Get really
That's
nervous,
Joe's speciality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, to be fair, I completely agree. I think the worst one for me was like during a Euros or World Cup. If it's a Sunday kickoff, I'm usually at home. I probably wouldn't go to the pub for a Sunday kickoff. But why, my parents or if I'm around my grandparents for a roast, why do they feel the need to cook a roast at about 5 o'clock just after a half four's kicked off? I will never know.
Yeah.
I can't eat it.
Yeah, I mean, in years ago, we used to have a bovril. That's what we used to have. I don't know why. Didn't even really like it, but it was one of those things that you had to have when you go to football. Was a bovril.
Mandy, we're going to turn your routine on its head before Crawley.
Yeah.
We're going to have you in for a Wetherspoons breakfast. We'll get a dirty burger. We're going to have
pints
of
I'm
Guinness.
a vegetarian. I won't be touching any meat, but yeah.
Yeah. Right, Jaeger bombs are vegetarian.
Oh, are they? Okay.
I think so.
Oh, I won't be any good on that either. So I'll give one a go for you if you want me to. So
there you go. We've got Mandy Co on the Jaeger bombs. Right, I'll tell you, it's all happening. Mandy's paying mortgages. She's going to be on the Jaeger bombs, and clearly the largest portion of chips in the world because she's a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Right, what we got? Well, we got Ellis. We are nearing the end here, Mandy. You'll be pleased to know. But we're on the anchor leg, as I like to refer to it. Ellis has got the next one.
Yeah, so is it true one of your first decisions since starting your new role with Swindon Town was to make it mandatory that all employers of Co-Capital are Town fans? The rest have been, quote, sent for a chat with HR.
Well, do you know what? They all are, so it's easy because the company was my husband and I set it up, and now it's run by our daughters and our son-in-laws, and all of them are Swindon fans. They since the pandemic, they used to come every week with us with their grandchildren. Over the pandemic, things slightly changed, and then when the pandemic, we opened up the world again. The kids were a little bit older, and they started playing football and things themselves. So the family can't always come because on match days, their children are doing their own things: golf, tennis, football, all sorts of things, and the parents are having to go along that. But they're all Swindon fans, I'm glad to say. And we actually watch football with my husband's brother and some other family members as well. So we're all big fans. So yeah.
Outstanding. So no need for a chat with HR.
No.
You'll be pleased. If someone's contemplating applying for that job at Co-Capital.
Yeah.
You're going to be fine unless you're of a yellow persuasion.
Yeah, and they've all bought women's season tickets for next year as well. I'm glad to say as well, the family have, so they'll be coming out on Sundays to watch the women play as well. So that'll be good.
Right, I've got your next question, Mandy. Can Mike cook? Oh, for goodness sake, who sent that in? Can Mike cook, man?
Can Mike cook what?
Can Mike cook? It's an attempt at a play on words.
Oh, can Mike cook?
This is dreadful. Whoever sent this in, take a good hard look at yourself.
I've got no idea. You'd have to ask his wife that, I think. So.
Yeah, that's all right. Well, Joe, move us along because at least this one kind of rescues the question. I think it came from the same person.
All right.
Yeah, moving along swiftly. He's very new in town. Describe Mike for us.
Describe Mike for you. How can I describe it? He's actually it's just my experience so far is he's been quite a gentleman, really. He's a nice guy. He speaks very nicely. Obviously he's a coach in the PFA. I don't know what he's like with the training, whether he's a sort of loud. I've seen him on a match day. I can only comment from what I've seen so far because I don't know him personally, but he seems quite calm, collected. I watch him when he's managing everybody. He seems to know what's happening. He seems to be a good coach. He's always chatting to people. He just seems like a really nice fella. He's got lots of contacts, obviously, and anyone that I've spoken that knows him just talks about him quite highly. So he's got a daughter that plays football as well. So he's got an interest in women's football in that respect as well. So I think probably the women would know him better at the moment than I do. But yeah, he seems a really nice guy and really dedicated. I mean, in the background, getting lots of WhatsApp messages for him, and he's organising lots. And of course, like everybody, he's got a full-time job as well. So like anyone that's involved in women's football, they're all working hard, and then they're having to do this evenings and weekends. And I just know he's quite dedicated to it. So yeah, just a really nice guy so far.
I think Hannah, you described him as very impressive, didn't you?
Yeah,
I met him.
I very, very much enjoyed interviewing him on Sunday. I thought, I mean, in a previous life, I had a lot of very close contact with the Football Association, and there's a sort of certain layer of kind of very active kind of coaches that clearly you end up engaging with when you're dealing with an organisation like the FA, and people will throw around the sort of negatives about, Blazers, and all this kind of nonsense. I really don't mean that at all. Mike's got a very, I mean, I was second all the things that you said there, Mandy, about him being obviously very gentlemanly. He's very studious, very, very kind of polite, but also very no nonsense. Like you can't stray off topic. He certainly won't suffer fools. And he's, I just found him very progressive. I think the thing that impressed me was that he really understands media. He understands the importance of media in and around football. That, he'd really done his homework before we had a chance to chat as well. Like, he knew all about us. He'd taken the time to go and learn all about us as well. And he spoke with real clarity and enthusiasm, and also I think my relationship with the squad is such that I think I would have sniffed out if there were any kind of concerns, etc. And to an individual, they were all really enthusiastic about first impressions. So yeah, no, yes, Joe, to answer your question, I really enjoyed talking to Mike on Sunday.
Yeah.
And it's the little things as well, like the courteous smile and handshake at the end of the day, and he's remembered your name, all that kind of things, as well as the kind of, the official duties at the start of the day, taking time to sort of, pull away from his coaching duties to come over just to sort of, make sure on a human level, everyone's got what they needed. And that, like I said, ticking all the boxes for me on Sunday. So, fingers crossed that translates to results on the pitch, which of course everybody will be scrutinising. Ellis, you've got the next one.
Yeah, I do. Who's your favourite all-time Swindon Town player?
My favourite all-time Swindon Town player. Oh, wow. I've got to say Glenn Hoddle. Obviously, he was player manager, but it's for me, it's got to be Glenn Hoddle. So yeah,
Glenn Hoddle it is.
Yeah.
And I've got your next question, Mandy, which is you've been asked here, Mandy, what was your last trip to the cinema? What did you watch?
Oh, actually, I went and saw Top Gun Maverick. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, you did.
Were
you a fan of the first one?
Pardon?
Were you a fan of the first movie?
Yeah, I did. Thought the second one was better, to be honest with you. Really enjoyed it. So yeah.
How about these are all quite quick fire questions. These.
Yeah.
So Joe, you've got the next one, the next quick fire as we rapidly come to the end.
Yeah.
I do indeed. I thought that when Mandy mentioned Top Gun, I thought you were going to go absolutely mental there, Hannah, because I know you're very fond of that, aren't you?
But listen, I don't get me started. All I'll say, I wanted. One of the reasons why I very nearly joined the Air Force as a young man was because of that movie. But don't get me started.
You can tell when Hannah's just can't be asked to talk because he'll just like communicate via gifs of Top Gun.
Yeah, no, I thought
it's just a way of communication.
And I had to watch it at the movies as well, so that you can see it in 3D, 4D, whatever it is that you see it in nowadays as well, with all the yeah.
So you've told us your favourite all-time town player.
Yeah.
Now you're more than welcome to use the same answer here, but who is your all-time town manager?
Glenn Hoddle.
There you go.
Yeah, definitely.
Cannot not.
Yeah.
Cannot not.
I'm just disappointed John Sheridan didn't get a mention.
No, I didn't mention him, did I? He's got no, definitely not.
Yeah, there's a rumour doing the rounds that, you know, when John Sheridan left the pitch towards the end of last season, he made a little gesture in your general direction.
Oh, did he? Oh.
Well, yeah, because, you know, maybe that you were doing something in his direction. You know, that's the allegation, Mandy.
Yeah,
that's the allegation.
That was a strange appointment, wasn't it? So, yeah.
Yeah. I think less said about that, the better.
I think so, yeah.
Ellis, you've got this next one.
Yeah. What's your greatest memory as a Town fan?
My greatest memory as a Town fan. Do you know what? I tell you, I was only thinking about it the other day because it came up on one of the sort of replay programs, and that was that game not so long ago, really, wasn't it? The Sheffield United 7-6 one. Was it in 2015? I mean, like, I just watched it back the other day. I mean, we had just lost what the score was, and we were all asking each other, what's the score now? I mean, it was just an incredible game, wasn't it? So, yeah, that was probably one of the, in recent history, that was probably one of the best games. And I still remember it so clearly. What a fantastic evening that was. So, unfortunately,
I've not recovered from that yet.
no, I mean, unfortunately, we then went to Wembley, didn't we, and got murdered 4-0, which was a bit of a shame. But yeah, but that game was just absolutely fantastic. So yeah.
Now, Matt, funny enough, the game against Southampton women, I was having this conversation with Annie Colston after the game that if the girls had had their shooting boots on, that would have been another game like the Sheffield United game. So you looked at a 5-1 reverse at the county ground, and you were like, "God, they've been on the receiving one there." But actually, I mean, we had worked their goalkeeper, we had loads of chances. We just we didn't get the rub of the green in the 80th. But I mean, quite easily have been a 7-6, couldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, it was. It was but yeah, that was probably in recent history. That was probably the last time, I guess, that we had and actually, last season, we were at the Warsaw game. You know, the one that got us up to the playoffs when none of us really expected to get there.
What a day that was!
And that was a fantastic. Sun was shining, brilliant performance. Was it 3-0? Wasn't it? I think
it was.
Yeah, it was a brilliant day. So the sun was shining, and it was just fantastic. So on a season that we, you know, if the season that we're experiencing this year had been in reverse, I think we all might have been quite happy. You know, if this season we were just getting into the playoffs on the last day, and we just achieved what we've achieved last year, with everything that had happened with the club the previous year, I think everybody might have been a little bit happier. All round, really.
I think, to be fair, I was just thinking about recent games. I would probably pick one of the games from this season as one of my favourite ever Town games, you know, which is, I don't think many people would say that. I think the Gillingham at home game when Charlie scored on his return.
Yeah.
Just purely because of the scenes in the Town end.
Yeah.
Hannah's his face just was a picture, I can tell you.
Last night was great, wasn't it? So.
Well, the thing I loved about the Gillingham game was that because of where I live, I literally very rarely enjoy my drive home, but that was the most amusing drive home.
Oh no, it wasn't Gillingham, was it? It was I'm thinking of Grimsby.
Oh yeah, no, Grimsby, yeah. Grimsby was literally. I mean, Ellis, how many times? I mean, Ellis, Joe, we were saying that ball hit the back of the net. I mean, Joe, you and I in particular were just counting the number of people that were just like grown men crying.
Was that the away match? Was it?
No, at home. This was Austin's first game back. Obviously we had all the hype, and we'd just come off of the media blackout too. So I think the fans were really in need of some, you know, a really uplifting performance and a really good day out.
Yeah.
And for Charlie to come back and the sort of the feeling walking around the ground, seeing people pile in, was literally because of, you know, a cult hero returning to the football club. And it was all for one man, sort of.
No, it was.
So the pressure really was on him to score and perform.
Yeah, and he really felt it as well. It was, even though, I mean, he's played for clubs that have got far greater sort of, you know, sort of club stature than ours in terms of the number of fans that they can attract and things like that. But he's spoken openly about, just how nervous he was that day. The relief when the ball hit the back of the net, it sounded like he was as nervous for that game as he was when he made his debut, when he openly said about, just feeling sick and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's fantastic.
What a moment.
Yeah.
But yeah. Right, Mandy, next one we've got, this is from this ask. Right, Mandy, you've talked about your movies. What are your top 3 albums of all time?
Oh my God. Top 3 albums. I don't know. I don't look at albums anymore. It's like, you download stuff, don't you? And
you do playlists.
You don't look at albums like you used to, do you?
No, you don't.
I don't know. I don't even know. We haven't got any albums anymore. I've got a real eclectic kind of look on music. I love 70s and 80s music. I love Motown music. My kids were sort of born late 80s, so they were brought up on Rick Astley and things like that, which is quite amusing. My grandson heard a Rick Astley song recently and he was singing it and I started singing it. He goes, "How do you know that?" So he didn't understand that Rick Astley was around when I was younger. I
think what we're learning about this, Mandy, is I'm not going to let you anywhere near Jay in the DJ box on a Saturday.
Absolutely. It's not the sort of thing that you like, I don't think. I went to see John Legend a couple of weeks ago in London. He was fantastic. So
reputation firmly restored, Mandy. Well done, you.
Yeah. And I did go to Led Zeppelin in Austria when I was a kid as well. So yeah. So I honestly just completely.
Step. Who would have thought it?
I know. Yeah. So I did go to. Yeah, we went to watch them. So.
Mandy, this next question is a belter and it's coming from Joe. Come on, Joe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I've got a good idea who sent this in, actually, the more I read this.
Not Steve Butcher, is it? He told me earlier he was going to send one in.
It could well be.
He did say earlier he texted me and said he's going to send one in. So,
so on the 80s, I had some awful business ties in my time, and they were very of their time. Have you ever worn an 80s power suit? How big were the shoulder pads?
Oh yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, I used to when back in the 80s where was I been working in the 80s? Yeah, when I went to work, I was working in a bank at the time. That's where I started out, and they gave us a uniform that had padded shoulders, and it was brown. It's crazy, really. So it was a brown sort of skirt suit with an orange blouse, very attractive, and the blouse had kind of like a ruffle down the middle of it, and it was big shoulder pads. And then we wore them all the time then. It was I doubt if you're old enough to remember Dallas, but everybody at the time watched Dallas, and we all had like big shiny cerise coloured tops with great big shoulders on them. Wouldn't be seen dead in them now, but back then
everything comes back around.
Absolutely.
You've still got time.
But then we used to have flares and platform shoes then as well. So which are on the back around again now. So,
would you, if you had to lock horns with Lee Power, would you do it wearing an 80s power suit?
With Lee, I don't know. I don't think he'd be bothered. Sorry, it's going to sound rude, isn't it? What I was wearing? No, I don't think. No, yeah, I don't think that'd scare him. Do you?
Well, I don't know. I reckon that. Well, again, you said earlier you're of the sort of iron gauntlet and a velvet glove.
Yeah.
I think you've got the. I think it's all about the stare with you, Maddie. I reckon you've got the stare.
Oh, do you think?
I reckon definitely. Ellis, move us along.
Yeah. Okay. So, if you were given the keys to the town of Swindon, what are your development priorities?
Oh, well, the town centre. I mean, it's a crying shame, isn't it, really? But I mean, I know a lot of town centres look the way that ours does, but I think ours is probably the worst example of around here. I mean, they've just spent so much money on it, the council, doing all sorts of different weird and wonderful things, from circus tents and other things, and I just think it's a real shame that we haven't got a proper town centre that you want to go shopping in. You only want to go to out of town centres or travel to Bristol or Bath or places like that, and not be able to go into the town centre. So I just think it's a real shame. So that would be something that I definitely want to spend a lot of money on. So
that seems fair. Town centre. This is a good one. We're almost at your penultimate question here, Mandy. So in business, speaking business person myself, what's bullshit bingo phrases most irritate you?
Oh, bullshit bingo phrase. Oh, blimey. Sorry?
There's so many phrases
I
to choose from.
know.
What's your personal hate?
What was well, it's just those normal, but it's not bullshit though, really. Business bullshit, but I can't stand it when someone says, "Oh, like, oh, are you okay? It might never happen," or "Why aren't you smiling?" and things like that. That's quite irritating. Do you know? I don't know. I can't think of one. I might have to come back and tell you about that later again with the other question that you asked me that I've forgotten about. So yeah,
have a little soak. So following on from that question, Joe has got your penultimate question. It kind of feels like your previous question.
Yeah.
This is a bit on the spot, a bit nasty as well, to be fair. Mandy, inspire me in 60 seconds.
Inspire you in 60 seconds?
Yeah.
To do what, Joe? What do you want to do?
Anything. I want to climb Mount Snowdon, and I want to raise £1 million for it.
Just go for it. Just start talking to people. Just start and convince people that you're going to do it. Be really nice to people so that they sponsor you in doing it. And just go for it. Just believe you can do it. Because you can do anything if you really believe that you can do it. Or you can at least try anyway and give it your biggest go at doing it anyway.
No nonsense there, Mandy.
Right. I'm off the show. I'm off down Millets, and I'm driving over to Wales.
Oh, are you? Okay. What, you going off the Brecon Beacons then?
Ellis, you're going to round us off for this evening with an old favourite.
Yeah, it's a classic. What is your favourite cheese?
My favourite cheese? Oh, I love it. I love cheddar. Well, I love all cheese, being a very vegetarian, but I love cheddar, and I also love Stilton. And which one would I prefer? Probably a bit of cheddar, actually, for a bit of cheese on toast, if I was honest. If it was my last meal, I'd probably have a bit of cheese on toast. So
I was going to say, you can't. I mean, I've got a bad story about Stilton.
Have you?
You can't have too much of it. Yeah, I've had a bad one.
Oh.
I had a few beers and got a bit of a paunch on for Stilton, and decided to eat a whole sort of wedge in one go.
Oh.
Let's just say it wasn't too pleasant coming out.
No. I suppose it depends what you've drunk with it, though. So.
I would probably be in 3 figures of units.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just a couple of bottles of port, Joe, in your case. Just a couple. Mandy Co, those are your silly questions. How was that for you?
Not too bad, actually. I think there was only a couple that I couldn't think of, wasn't there? But yeah.
Well, in true sort of supporters club to football dignitary sort of style, please send us, as Chris would brilliantly say on the official supporters club, please I'm sure you'll answer eventually, Mandy, and we will look to publish your answers for the enjoyment of everyone. And I think we've got a couple of questions you've got to come back to us on there, Mandy, haven't you? And we won't forget. And so we've worked out a few things that we what did we learn about Mandy there, Joe and Ellis? We kind of learned that Mandy might be up for paying our mortgages and paying that of all Swindon Town supporters. You'll be pleased to know, as the under the banner of Co-Capital Wealth Management, but she can't quite afford to do that. But I still think
come and spend the first half with you on the Crawley game.
Yes, this is the other thing. Of course, we've got. We're gonna lure Mandy into the town end for the Crawley game, where we can all work on her as a stand collective. And by the end of the game, maybe Mandy will have written a few checks.
Yeah, I might even try and sneak in the men's toilets then if the women's are full. Just so.
We've got that commitment from you as well.
To be fair, I really wouldn't make that a priority because no one needs to see that. That's the last. I'd rather wait to get home after an hour and a half drive. Really, to be fair.
Yeah, Mandy. I wouldn't inflict those on you. I really wouldn't. I think we're all friends here, Mandy. We want to keep it that way.
Okay.
Well, Mandy Co, those are your silly questions. You've been a great sport. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much.
We're gonna let you drift off into the night, and we'll see you very soon.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you.
Cheers, Mandy.
Bye.
Cheers, Mandy.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, we've got, and whilst Mandy exits stage left, enter stage right. We've got Tom Parrish from the Supporters Trust. How are you, Tom? As we connect his mic, how are we, Tom?
Good evening, Hannahs and everybody online.
Good evening, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. It's always nice feeling after a win, isn't it? The day before.
Yeah,
it feels weird, doesn't it? Doesn't feel right.
No.
Yeah, I'm sort of, I don't know, really. I just feel naturally that I've got that little lighter skip in my step, and all the rest of it. It's just a shame it's come at the end of a season and off the back of a run where it doesn't mean a lot other than, a bit of pride, a bit of belief going into next season and so on and such like. But we'll keep our powder dry, Tom. We'll keep our powder dry.
Well, one thing I would want to say about last night is ever since we had that whole altercation about Mr. Doyle and whether he should be playing for Bradford or Swindon and all that sort of malarkey, it's always nice getting a little victory over them, especially that a statistic I heard last night is that they haven't lost away all season apart from at the county grounds. So that's a little feather in the cap, isn't it?
Absolutely.
They haven't lost away all season. Swindon hadn't managed to win in 2 months, and we all knew what was happening.
Had to happen at some point, right?
But
yeah, we won the derby, so we'll take that.
I mean, listen, we're going to pick apart that performance here, ever so shortly, Tom. I think the thing for me was, obviously that we moved the ball around brilliantly, and I think it just restored a bit of faith. We know that those lads on paper are technicians, and I think in many ways, because obviously Bradford's still got a lot to play for, so it wasn't like they were going for it. And I think, we did a bit of a number on them. But, mate, listen, as I say, we'll keep our powder dry because we've got Joe's going to do a big old deep dive. But you've got a busy few days coming up, Tom, haven't you?
Yeah. So obviously, since the county ground got purchased, a couple of weeks ago now, I forget. It's all been a bit of a daydream since, or a blur. But yeah, we're getting started with the whole interaction of fans getting involved and having a say on what happens with the county ground, which is all very, very exciting. So, yeah.
And how are you going to go about doing that, Tom?
So
hence the purpose.
There's a survey that's going out on the weekend to all voting share members. So to be a voting share, you need to pop along to votingshare.com. It's £19.79 for an annual membership, which means that you will be involved and being able to have a say on proposals and fan engagement that's all around the county ground. So this is the first of what we plan to be many, many engagements. So, you're not missing the boat if you don't get involved now. But it's just worth saying this is the very first one. So if you want to be involved from day one, the first interaction, then strongly recommend you get yourself along to votingshares.com and get signed up before the weekend commences.
Is that, Joe Ellis, anything you want to add to, to what Tom's saying? I mean, obviously it's a funny one, isn't it? Because Tom, you'll be the first one that we have this conversation on Saturdays. The Trust have come in for an awful lot of flack of late in terms of people on the socials having a bit of a dig, saying that you're a bit neutered or you're this or you're that. But I mean, surely if you want to have a say in anything the Trust are doing, like this, it's a bit like I invite people to come on the show, share their points of view and whatnot. You're kind of saying, well, it's a little bit frustrating when those same people are the ones that are kind of complaining. What would any of you guys, Joe, Ellis, Tom, what would any of you guys say to any dissenters ahead of the ahead of this opportunity?
I would just second what you said, Hannahs. At the end of the day, it's a democracy, isn't it? It's not It's not a dictator at the top table, if you like you said, Hannah's. Everyone gets their say, and I think it's really important to how the club is run, especially with the county ground being bought. It's such a big, a big deal, really. And I think
Ellis there as well.
Yeah.
You say it's a democracy. It's only a democracy if people actually vote.
So exactly.
You need to get involved. It's a really poignant moment in Swindon Town's history, this being the first time that supporters can really get involved with, key decisions that are being made at the football club. This is a chance for you to have your say in a big way. So you've got to take it.
Yeah, I mean, Tom, obviously some of the reassurance I think people might want to kind of get from this is how do you avoid people feeling like a small fish in a large pond, in terms of is their voice really going to be listened to? Like if they feel that their point of view is in a minority, how are they going to have any faith that they're being listened to? Is there anything you can do to sort of reassure people that might think like that?
But at the end of the day, the survey that we're sending out, we're in the process, or the purpose of this is to listen to ideas. We're very much wanting to engage with the fan base. We want the fans to feel engaged as much as possible. No idea is a silly idea at this point. And all of the survey results, we analyse, we look through, and we put all of that to whoever we need to. So if it's a survey in relation to feedback to the club, the feedback in its entirety does not get filtered, and it goes directly to the club. Rob, Clem, they all see it. They've all got visibility of it and will read it. And the purpose of this survey is that it will go into the first inaugural CGJV meeting to review the survey results. The whole purpose of why we want to do it now is ahead of the setup coming in May, where we really want to get cracking on it. Obviously, we've got some big projects that we need to get started on and need to make some decisions about, but there's lots of other bits and pieces that need to shape into that roadmap. And ultimately, being half owned by the fans have got a major part in shaping what that looks like. And more eyes on it, the better that the ground will be developed. And like I said, no idea is a silly idea at all at this point. So fully encourage everyone to get engaged, because nobody will be excluded, and every single idea will be read, considered, and discussed.
I'm guessing, Tom, as well, there has to be an element of kind of realism in people's heads when it comes to. I mean, look, one of the problems that I think I had this conversation with someone earlier in the week when they were taking shots at the club and talking about transparency and the club not listening to them and so on and such like. And I've made the point that, look, I know for a fact that Rob and Clem's not on socials, but I know that Clem catches up on our shows through recorded mediums, and I know that the people that are actually making decisions at our football club listen to our show. So when I encourage people to come on, share their points of view and so on and such like, it's knowing as a supporter, and I hasten to add as an independent supporter, that the powers that be listen to our show, right? So just because you don't look now and see them on the live listener list doesn't mean that they're not catching up with the content. So, but the point that sort of came back was, yeah, but I just don't feel, why would they listen to me? And I contribute to these sort of time. I'm always sending things into, and I never see a response to what I've got to say. And it's it's a fair point, but at the same time, there has to be that level of realism. It's like, well, hang on a minute, you've got 10,000 supporters turn up to watch a game on a Saturday. If 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 people kind of, submit their responses, how could you expect one response to get an individual response from someone at the club? It's a bit like, kind of doesn't work like that, Tom, does it? And I think for some people, expectations have been overblown by the very personable nature of our owner, for example, or commitments to transparency. It's like people's barometer for transparency is, everyone's barometer is very different. I hope I'm making sense here. in terms of what it is I'm trying to say. It's the same problem that you maybe have got with this, with the questionnaire.
Yeah, to a degree. Although I would stress here that any question that a fan would like us to ask to even the advisory board or the club for an answer, we don't dodge any of them. We put every single one of them to the club, and it's documented within the AB minutes and notes. Now, I know that there's been chatter on socials in regards to the quality of that response, but rest assured, whilst that might be the official response from the club, and referencing also some of the things you mentioned earlier about the trust getting flack in regards to not pushing hard enough, I can assure everybody that we do. It's one of those delicate things as a trust where, and it's something that Alex Pollock has said, our vice chair, quite clearly, the trust is very much a political vehicle where we are representing the voice of the fans. There's a balance within what's said publicly and what's said behind closed doors. But rest assured that the trust is always there to represent the voice of the fans. And whilst that might not be documented publicly, things are certainly said privately, that is heard. And as you can see from some of the advisory board minute notes that's come out today, it seems like there's a great big feedback in regards to that, in terms of that positivity of being heard, being listened, being engaged with. And that's a culmination of many months of work from James Spencer attending the ABs and putting those questions forward and pushing. And Steve obviously came to the last one and asked a lot more questions as well, beyond what fans were asking to draw out bits and pieces. And it's part of that ongoing relationship with the club. It's not always easy. I wish it was all sunny and rosy, but there are conversations that we do have with the club that are difficult. But nonetheless, that does not mean that we shy or duck away from them. It is a vehicle through the trust. One of our purposes is to be amplifying the voices of the fans, and we do our very best to do that. And we will continue to try our very best. We might not be perfect every time. We are volunteers at the end of the day and fans just like everybody else. But we take our role and responsibility with the trust very seriously. And yeah, we're there for the fans, to represent the fans. And if there is things that aren't quite up to the standard of expectation, then we take on board that feedback and fight harder, because that's just what we're here for. And without the fans behind us and giving us that content and engaging with us, then there's no relevance to the trust, and that's absolutely going to be demising for our club overall. But overall, get your thoughts involved, get them down on paper on that survey on Saturday, join the trust, join this vehicle that we are coming together as a fan base to be united, to elevate those voices, elevate those ideas, elevate those thought process. And I can be quite frank in the sense that the stuff that is being considered for the trust and the club, in terms of what the priorities are around the club, is that we ultimately want to be driving 365 days worth of revenue from ventures that benefit the club overall. So if there are ideas that you have in your mind that will help with that purpose and vision, then get involved. We need your help. And without it, it's only just a couple of individuals putting forward ideas, but we want to be representing that fan base. And the trust is that vehicle for it.
Tom, the another thing I was going to mention as well, obviously outside of times where we have these surveys running and stuff, is there a way or a certain way to contact the trust if a Swindon Town fan has a particular question they'd like to be answered?
Absolutely.
On an advisory board? How would they get in touch with the trust to sort of pose those questions?
Shoot us an email to info@TrustSTFC.com. By all means, you can ask myself on Twitter or Facebook, but fundamentally the method and the process that we have to make sure that we don't miss any questions that come in from various sources, please just send us an email to info@truststfc.com. That will then be picked up. And if your question doesn't make the deadline, shall we say, of preparing for the AB that's coming up, then without a shadow of doubt, it will be added immediately to the list of questions for the next advisory board that would be obviously happening the month following.
Perfect.
Tom, we've been sent a really interesting question here by Aaron Chahal. Aaron's never afraid to send a pointed question.
Cool.
And Aaron's asking, this is not a question for the club. This is a question for you guys as a trust. Yep. I mean, and feel free if this is something you want to take offline and direct back to Aaron, directly, you certainly can. And we need to tread very, very carefully here because we're straying into sort of legal territory, Aaron. But Aaron said, I've got a question for the trust. How do they feel about a convicted money launderer being our vice chairman for the best part of 2 years, since been made unofficial from today's advisory board? How do the trust feel about this? Why didn't the trust ever address him taking a financial fair play test for 2 years? Now, I don't want to, obviously, you've come on to talk about the questionnaire, but nonetheless, Aaron's posed the question to you. I think I would tweak this ever so slightly as well. From my perspective, I would ask this question of the trust, Tom. There are questions about just how pointed the trust are being, which is probably why Aaron's sort of coming. Aaron's probably asked that question because he feels that people aren't answering, or you guys aren't asking any pointed questions that just seem to constantly be cycled on the socials. Aaron's just tweeted again saying he means fit and proper persons, not financial fair play. So has that conversation been had? I know the official supporters club had various people on earlier in the season that have talked about their prior convictions and the fact that obviously they believe that obviously they've served their time, they're on the road to rehabilitation. But where are you guys at in terms of sort of, wanting to make sure that all continues to be as it should be with the football club?
From the conversations that we've had with the club around the matter, we have shared our feedback. I don't feel at this point it would be appropriate to discuss that openly. As you rightly say, Hannah, it is a little bit of a sensitive matter. And ultimately, our thoughts and opinions, to a large degree, we can express them as much as we like, but ultimately the club and Clem chooses to invite individuals as a guest of his choosing, and by all means we share our thoughts and opinions on that and have that conversation largely behind closed doors, rather than airing it all in public.
I mean, I would have come at it from a point of view that, I mean, at the start of the season, certain characters were invited on, spoke very openly, about their past to Vic Morgan. That stuff was aired, it was discussed, it was explained, and I would say it's certainly, I think, most fans' minds. I don't necessarily feel that they felt that the itch was scratched, or indeed that because not everybody would listen, for example, to the Sports Club. Not everybody listens to the Tom Broadbent Lounge. There was an article we're going to be going through it. Rob Angus put something in the official Matchday programme. Sort of damned if you do, don't. Rob got shot down for putting the Matchday programme and not putting that absolutely everywhere. So I'm guessing there's an element that can't please everybody, but at the same time, we obviously all care deeply about our football club, Tom, don't we? So I think supporters are obviously looking to the trust for leadership in making sure that, the thing that we care about the most, our football club, is, surrounded by the people that supporters want running their football club. Right? I appreciate it's a business. At the same time, it's our football club, right? The people running it are custodians.
Yeah, I 100% agree. The assurances that we have gained from the club around the matter is that there is no money going into the club from Zav. There isn't any, to my memory here, there isn't any decisions that have been made where Zav has been involved. So there's been, various topics and various conversations and questions asked about Zav's role in the club, but it's very much a topic that has been discussed numerous times over Clem's tenure within the club.
Yeah. Tom, Mark's followed up. I guess, Mark, thank you so much, mate. You've kind of very eloquently put the kind of point that I was trying to make a second or two ago. Just very, very, a hell of a lot sort of easier than I have, which is, and so my quote, Mark saying, I guess one of the concerns is how much does the trust challenge the status quo? Publicly stating that comes place off record between the trust and the hierarchy doesn't instill confidence, and in many ways has a negative effect. I guess, I mean, that's the point, isn't it? It's people sort of say, well, obviously the trust are fans just like the rest of us, but at the same time, the transparency that we've been promised, the questions that we've been promised are going to be asked, and real everyday rank and file fans, just like I, Tom, just because obviously you're at the trust, I do the Sit On Broadbent lounge. Fans that sit in the stands want the same questions asked. I think that one of the things that I think, though, Mark, I don't know whether this is answering your question or just stating, and I'm trying not to kind of freestyle on this. We have to be. It's very easy to fire pointed questions and get us to ask those in a public, in a public environment. What you need to understand is that obviously you're speaking. I am a volunteer. I do this for free. Tom is a volunteer. He does this for free. We're not necessarily. We're not insured to the hilt, and we certainly don't want to be standing in court for months on end. I appreciate there is a difference between the trust and the Sit On Broadbent Lounge, but there's always going to be an element of hesitancy when you're doorstep with a question, is what I'm trying to say. So, I mean, listen, Tom, we're always going to appreciate you coming on, but if people have got these pointed questions, just to be clear, and I've got to say, like, obviously, we've seen the latest advisory board notes. I don't know whether the people that are firing questions might have seen those notes, but some of those questions are pretty pointed, right? Can you just give people reassurance, Tom, that if you've got questions like the likes of which are rolling in now, you will ask each and every question, as you said earlier? Like, can you just reiterate to people that is what you will promise them?
1,000,000%. Every single question that we receive will be asked to the club, and the club will be asked for a response on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, just as a point, look, I don't want to get into the whys and whatnots of. I mean, but look, SM1 Insider, you've just sent in a question there, which is like, for example, Tom, and we'll get them to send this in via the correct channels. But a question for Tom: when the club blatantly ignore questions that the advisory board, the relation to Chris Kiley, why does no one present in the meetings or challenge this to request a straight answer? All seems a bit too cozy. But look, SM1 Insider, I'll just make that point. No one knows who you are, right? You can literally be what you like behind the comfort of anonymity. I think what you need to understand is certainly everyone knows who I am, and I'm asking questions. Tom's asking questions, but you're obviously asking us to fire out questions. But it seems like these are questions that you're not willing to fire out yourself and put your name to it. So you're sort of challenging people to ask very pointed questions, but you yourself are doing it behind a cloak of anonymity. I mean, all I would say is be accountable. If you want these questions asked yourself, then step out from behind your SM1 Insider alter ego and just ask these questions as whoever it is you are. And then maybe you'll find it a little bit trickier to ask questions that could lead to you standing in the dock, needing to answer questions, or receiving a summons for a civil case for slander. So these are all things that you need to consider. And like I said, Tom isn't aware that we're going to ask those questions tonight. I wasn't expecting to answer those questions, but at the same time, I think it's only right and proper that those questions are noted down. And Tom's already said that he will be asking those at the advisory board. Tom, anything you want to add to that? Is there anything that,
aside of all the questions regarding questions into the AB and stuff like that, that aside, the message really is, if you want to get involved in the county ground redevelopment from day one and you're not involved to date, get yourself along to votingshares.com, get yourself a annual membership into the Voting Shares, and wait for that survey on Saturday. And we look forward to receiving your ideas, feedback, and thoughts.
Tom, there's a few more tweets and bits and bobs that are jumping on the thread, mate. I'm sure you're going to keep an eye on some of those, and I'll leave that for you and your Trust colleagues to respond to people directly. But mate, listen, thank you ever so much for coming on, and I wish you all the best, because obviously we're talking about the county ground is ground jewel, and appreciate on an evening where you've had a few tricky questions to try and there that have kind of been just dropped on your lap. I want to, just make sure that everybody is aware that certainly you, amongst other people within the Trust, have worked your absolute proverbials off on behalf of the fan base over the last few weeks. Weeks, months, years even. So, mate, tip our hat to you guys. Thank you for your continued efforts. You said yourself, it's not perfect. And people are always going to take exception with some things that you say, some things you do, or indeed that you don't, but I think we can all keep our fingers crossed moving forward that the county ground is going to be a hell of a decent development under the joint ownership of the football club supporters, mate. So
for sure,
yeah, but we will continue, Tom. We're going to continue to hopefully we'll continue to be asking you the awkward questions moving forward, right? Because
bring it on.
That's where the that's where the creative tension lies. That's where the magic lives.
Absolutely, appreciate it. Thank you very much, Hammers.
Thanks ever so much, pal. Look forward to seeing you soon.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Ta-ra, mate. Well, there you are, Tom Parris from TrustSTFC. I mean, I don't know, Joe. Listen, my background, my media background. I grew up in sort of commercially or as a business person in a media landscape that was pre social media, and then watched social media sort of blow up and mushroom into what we've got now. And there's a lot about social media that I really don't like. And one of the things that I really, really don't like is anonymous accounts. And so it's not a personal thing, SM1 Insider. I probably know who you are, and maybe I don't. I really, at the end of the day, it's not those things. But as someone that goes to lengths to make myself accountable for what I put out there, I think we all have a responsibility to each other to be accountable for our opinions, for our questions. I had no problem asking questions the likes that Aaron's, Aaron posted, kind of got the ball rolling. The thing that I really respect about that is that, Aaron's obviously posted under his real name, and has always been contactable. I just find it very difficult when people are willing to take shots at people like Tom, and do it behind the comfort of a pseudonym. It's just something, like I said, that's a personal taste thing. I
think social media gives a lot of people a voice, and it gives people a loud voice. It's just using it in the right way. I think, there are questions at the football club that I think it's not just, SM1 Insider wants those answers. I want those answers. You want those answers. Ellis wants those answers. Every Swindon Town fan wants to know the answers to questions that are important to us as people. As Swindon Town's a passion, and we want to know that people at the club are there because they're, deserving of the position. They've got the best intentions, etc. There are ways to have these questions answered, but there are also ways to have those questions asked even in the wrong way. And as you say, in a way that's going to, put certain people in bother. So there's a way we've got to go around it. And I think in time, this season's transparency hasn't been ideal. I think, we've had, in terms of the show, I think the transparency from the football club has been really good. Obviously, Rob's been on the show this year, Clem's been on the show, Greg Norman. We've had some really good guests. But I think in general, the wider population of Swindon fans probably go off of social media in terms of tweets and Facebook posts, Instagram, TikTok, whatever that may be. That probably hasn't been ideal. So, we want these questions to be answered. We want improvement. We just have to go about it a little bit clever, and just go down the right routes. And Tom's obviously given us an idea of how we can have these questions asked by the Trust on the advisory board. And I would urge any Swindon Town fan, if you've got a question, ping Tom a DM, or if you want to ping us a DM and we'll send it on to Tom, we will get those questions asked and answered.
I've got to be honest with you. I mean, I read the advisory board notes today.
Mate, I thought it was a good one. Genuinely, I thought it was a really good one.
I looked at the question. I looked at the list of questions towards the end of it, and I was like, do you know what? Those questions that have been asked seem to be the kind of questions that the trust have been accused of not asking. And I think, some of the answers are. I mean, some of the answers are a little bit vague. Like, I get that, I really do, but I don't know. There's something about. The thing is, I don't know whether it's a management of expectations thing that the club have maybe not been great about. Like the club promised full transparency, and they've been taken to the absolute literal level on that. And as a prime example, there were questions about, the or publishing certain numbers that, if they were to publish those numbers, will literally be like playing poker, but showing everyone your hand while you're playing poker.
Yeah, well, it's a real thin line, especially in a competitive sport such as football, in a professional environment too. I think, you said there about tough questions on the advisory boards that have been published. I mean, the one in particular, I think that we're all talking about, the question being, please give a straight answer to these simple questions. Does Zav Austin qualify as a relevant person in the eyes of the EFL? And if so, what was the result of his going through the owners and directors test? What is his role and responsibility? Please give a specific answer on the outcome of his owners and directors test. That's a real. They could easily just not ask that question, or ask it at the board and not publish that on the advisory board, because we know that Zav was published on the website and on official stream channels as the vice chairman. We know that he's been removed from that post on the official website, in programs, in documents. He's no longer that role. There hasn't been an official statement the club have made, as far as I'm aware, but they've chosen to publish this with the answer. Clem was very thankful to Zav for the role he played in helping Clem take stewardship of the club. He promised the role of vice chairman. Clem was unaware of the stringent rules in place via the owners and directors test. After legal advice, we did not apply for the owners and directors test, and therefore Zav is not vice chairman. However, Zav will continue to attend match days and be a guest of the football club, giving us critical support in helping Clem take control of the club. That's a really, a really strong, I think, open and honest response from the football club. To say that Clem potentially wasn't aware of the sort of the rules between having people in certain positions and their background. You've got to take that at face value. He's owned up to that mistake, and they've taken action to remove somebody from a post that they shouldn't be in, but that could potentially be putting the club at risk. They've tried to mitigate that. They've been open and honest with supporters in terms of that position. Maybe it could have come a little bit sooner. That's probably fair to say, but I think we've got there now with that one. I think the Chris Kiley one, I find it very odd that he's not been mentioned in any literature by the football club. I think the first time personally that I ever came across the name was, he was published in a EFL handbook at the start of the season as one of our directors. You're thinking, okay, you haven't got it was Clem and Chris on there. You're thinking, right, where's Rob? If D's up there, where's Rob? Where's other people? So that probably started off the bandwagon of rumours of who is this Chris Kiley. And that was swerved, I guess, a little bit in the advisory board. So maybe that's a question that on the next one we could have answered. But they've done this advisory board. The minutes are really worth reading. Anyone that hasn't read them, they're on the official website for Swindon Town. It's definitely worth 10 minutes of your time. Grab a cuppa, have a sit down, read through it.
But I guess
it's really depth.
But this is the thing, Joe. Like when it comes to social media and like the kind of debates that come as a result of social media, you've got some people that will be, almost like viewing it with a lawyer's eye, and then for example, we won't go down that rabbit hole, but I remember I was contacted, after Tom Broadbent came on the show a few months back and was saying to people, obviously he just started working for Game Plan, And I was contacted by somebody that works for a financial company that had a view on the sort of services that they were offering and whether or not that they should be offered to Swindon Town fans. And then I had, you know, almost, it was like they were coming at it from such a kind of a forensic eye. But then I had a number of Town fans that were in contact with Tom, and everything. They're absolutely over the moon with it. But then it's the same kind of, it's the same topic in relation to sort of people's opinions on the running of the football club. Like you've got people kind of wanting to deep dive into things that I'm sometimes I sit there thinking, well, how are you forensic? How are you qualified to even ask that question? Apart from obviously being a Town fan that really cares, like what, you know, is there? I don't know. Like I'm sort of tying myself up in knots here. It's a little bit like, you know, we all care about our football club. Like that is absolutely undeniable. But to what extent do you need to understand the depth of the running of our football club? Like to what extent, where do you want to take that, and for what purpose? I guess.
I think ultimately, any question, genuinely any question, there's a right for it to be asked. I think there are maybe some questions there probably is the right to not answer. But still, I think any question that you may have, however popular or unpopular that opinion may be, it's still worth asking the question because it poses an opinion onto the football club.
Yeah, but it's like people's motivations, Joe, is what I'm trying to say. So
yeah, I get what you mean, mate. I get what you mean, but again, you can't.
When people are querying sort of things that, you know, sort of individuals coming on our show offering certain services, people are querying that.
Yeah, you've got to take that sort of stuff at face value, haven't you?
Yeah, what is your motivation for querying that, and why should we be doubting as you know, as a show that, you know, what, like
the motivation to get life insurance to write a will? We're not.
It's the fundamentals of social media is what I'm trying to say. Like it is such a broad church. You never please everybody, and like you say, yeah, debate is healthy. But I mean, I've always been amazed at just how quick debate goes quietly when the goals are flying in and the points are racking up and the team are sitting at the top of the table. It's like when things aren't so great, the whole world is evil, and we go looking for reasons why something is rotten to the core, as per the bedsheet on the county ground fence a couple of weeks ago. But I mean, look, maybe we're labouring the point.
Hannah's, I think that's a really good point that you just made there. If you look at the 2019-2020 season when we got promoted, you know, behind the scenes in terms of how the club was being run, the club was probably, well, it was in the worst state it's been in pretty much ever, and we were winning, you know. So the whole vibe compared to now, like currently, this is the best the football club's arguably position ever been in terms of the business side, but the footballing side, it's one of the worst. And just the whole vibe is completely different. But I think regarding, you know, fans asking questions and constantly questioning things, I think a big part of it is because of the club's history, because of all, you know, the stuff we went through with power and the club
wounded.
Exactly, and I think Town fans sort of expect the worst and expect something to be bad when, you know, there could be Zav Austin could literally just be a guest and he's got nothing to do with the football club, but you know, because as a Town fan we've been through so much, I think people have just got their backs up a little bit and, you know, think the worst.
Yeah, and
I think Mark's made a really good point in the comments as well, to be fair. Hannah's, sorry, just cut you up there. Mark's has put, let's be honest, no business will ever provide a full answer to every question consumers may have. Fair point. When the integrity of the operating model or individuals involved in the running of it are at best questionable, then those questions are valid and need to be asked on record. Like I say, I completely agree with that, Mark. I think, you know, if you've got these questions that you need to be asked, there's nothing holding you back from sending those into the club, sending them into the trust, and getting them answered, because ultimately, as Ellis has sort of alluded to there, if something's, well, at least I think in Swindon Town fans' minds, if something's too good to be true, it probably is. And we've said that a lot on the show, haven't we, Hannahs? That, you know, we've got previous of going through a really good period and then suddenly we're getting, you know, smacked on the arse and told we're going down 2 divisions. It's like,
I just, you know, I wonder. I mean, sometimes I wonder whether it is just like, you know, I mean, look, I have no insider information on this. Like, I got to stress this, and this is just a, you know, like a hunch from my perspective. But when something has got so bad, when the club has been through so many kind of periods of, you know, of mismanagement or financial distress, or, you know, I mean, you've got ongoing legal actions now. Things being detailed now on the advisory board notes, where the club is in court on 3 or 4 different fronts, and there are FA charges and things like this. I think there are things that maybe the club want to be able to talk openly about that maybe they can't talk about openly because there's ongoing legal sort of issues that are trundling along, and maybe they've been advised not to talk about them, you know, for good reason. So, I mean, that happens a lot. You know, I can speak as quite openly as someone that's a former first responder. You know, there are situations I've found myself in my life where, you know, I have needed to go and stand up in court and give evidence and such like, and you cannot talk about the court case, you know, whilst you're around your family. There can't be a speculation about it. Like, there just can't be. And if you do talk about it openly, you know, there are serious consequences. So I think, I mean, listen, I guess, like I'm trying to say is, like, we haven't necessarily got the answers, like, to everybody's question, but I think I always try and be glass half full. So I always try and be, you know, give people a reason to sort of think positively rather than negatively about the future. And all I will say is, I go back to what Tom and the Trust guys have said historically, and you've seen it in the latest notes, that if you've got pointed questions, I know the Trust have come in for a lot of flack, but I looked at those advisory notes, those advisory minutes, and I'm like, all the questions are there at the end of the day. Like, they are asking those questions. And I'll just go back to my point. I think it's very easy to sit in an ivory tower of anonymity and point fingers at the Trust and say, you're not doing your job properly. But at the same time, I wonder how many of those people are actually asking those questions openly and honestly by disclosing who they are and being responsible for their, you know, for their output. You know, that's a very, very, very different ball game to play when you are responsible for your output. And I say that as somebody, as I mentioned earlier, has grown up as, you know, in traditional media cycles, that has watched circles, that has watched social media sort of, you know, grow and blossom. But the traditional media outlets, you know, all those, you know, newspapers, magazines, all had editors that were responsible fundamentally for their content. How many people that operate on social media that put some of this stuff out there are being responsible for their content in the same way? You know, very few. I see a lot of very pointed questions being asked by people that are very, very hard to track down. I just think we need to sort of like bear that in mind a little bit. And like I said, it's interesting because some of the personalities you're talking about, I've seen questions that are suggesting that, you know, people like Zav Austin have never come out and done anything publicly. Well, like I said, I vividly remember at the start of the season, you know, he did an hour-long interview with Vic Morgan, and Vic asked some very, very pointed questions. Just because of that, those topics of conversation haven't been constantly revisited throughout the season doesn't mean that interview didn't happen. It just means that certain people didn't see it, and some people that have got, you know, convictions that are in their past and they're rehabilitated don't want to constantly go back and recycle their, you know, their past, and rightly so. We should be able to let people get on with their lives, but, you know, I just think there's a lot of throwing stones. And I don't necessarily think the people that are always throwing stones are being accountable for, you know, for the stones that they've thrown. Does that make sense, Joe? Have I made sense?
Yeah, like, mate, I think, to be fair, it's probably a topic that you could dedicate a show to, really, isn't it? Especially given the situation that we find ourselves in at this minute in time. But as you say, if you've got a question, just front up, ask it. And you've seen today that these questions do get asked to the football club. And if at all possible, I think they will reply as open and honest as they can. Yeah, the channels are there.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Did anyone hear about the cockfight last night and the robin that turned out and they won it? The chickens got absolutely battered.
Yeah, I watched it.
Mate, to be fair, I didn't go to the game. I really wish I did. I didn't do it because I was proving a point. I wasn't one of those. Mate, I couldn't afford it. I could not afford it.
I mean, I'll give you my perspective. Going back to matters on the pitch, and thank you for bringing us back to the most important thing, which is obviously matters on the pitch.
Yeah.
I tell you what. I mean, it filled me full of joy because I'd had a terrible day. I wasn't able to visit I wasn't able to be at the county grounds for matters way beyond my control, which was a real frustration for me. But I was able to tune in from afar about halfway through the first half, and because of the circumstances that I was in, I had absolutely no visibility up until the point that I tuned in of what the score was or anything along those lines. And off the back of Saturday's snooze fest against Barrow, I really was, like most people going into that game, kind of fearing the worst. And it's fair to say that I look down our squad list and I look at a team who I continue to describe them as technicians. I believe that they're capable of playing a certain type of football. I question whether, as a complete unit, that going into last night's game, question whether they could go toe to toe with some of the bigger, more physical clubs in teams in that league. And off the back of Saturday, I was expecting to tune in, find us 2-0 down, and see our midfield being sliced through like the quote cliche we mentioned recently, hot knife through butter. So much to my surprise, I tuned in, it was 0-0, and actually one of the first things I saw was a beautiful passing move and surging run from Saidu Khan, which I've been crying out for a Swindon Town player to demonstrate. So, I mean, without sort of like going too deep and stealing all your thunder, Joe, I think at that point I was kind of transfixed, and I was in for the rest of the game, and then we all know where that went. But yeah, Joe, sort of jump back in, mate. Don't let me. I don't want
to. No, mate. To be fair, I was 5 minutes late to whack it on stream. I had my dinner. I was in no rush to finish and sort of get comfy and watching the football. But I saw my phone was at 10 to 8. I was like, right, 5 minutes in, I literally was expecting us to be 1-0 down. I put the stream on. I was thinking, right, this is because ultimately, as we mentioned earlier on, Bradford haven't lost away in 20 odd games. Swindon haven't won in 2 months. Now, you put that on paper, you're expecting a bloody 5-6-0 Tonkin. Like, it's just, that's what logic would suggest. But we don't support a logical football team, do we? We support Swindon Town Football Club, who are probably the most illogical football team. Hence why we've been saying, this season's been shit. Buy season tickets, because we're winning the league next year. That's just the way it goes. But, on last night, we won the game 1-0, which a lot of people can see on paper and think, scrappy win, they might have nicked it. I genuinely don't think we did. I think we were the better team. If we weren't the better team, we at least matched them. If you look at stats-wise, I think we had 55% possession, so we've edged them on that. We've had 12 shots to their 16, but are both having 3 on target. That's not a gaping... that's not a gaping difference in terms of clear-cut opportunities. In fact, the BBC have got, in terms of stats, clear-cut chances, us having 2, them having none. We've had more corners than them. We've had Solbrun's had to make less saves. It's just, mate, it was a really, really good performance. And I think the best thing about it was, you saw maybe a little bit of rotation in the squad. I know people mentioned Kadji coming in for McEachran not being the same sort of player, but I don't think you can expect them to be similar. I think they do have different abilities, different positives, cons, whatever. He held his own. He did all right. He's still a young lad. But you had players like, I think Luke Jeffcott had a fairly decent game last night. I think he was chasing the ball up top. I think he did a lot of running. He was probably, the word I'd use is maybe industrious. Rashawn Hepburn-Murphy, Jake Wakelin. Honestly, the boys didn't stop running the entire game. And I think we outran them. That's ultimately where we won the game, was just by the pure effort. You didn't see the effort from the fat men wearing navy blue, did you?
speaking as a former keeper, Joe, the thing that really has pleased me about the last two games is that we finally learned to defend.
Yeah.
No surprise to me that Clayton's come back into the back four.
He looked mustard.
Yeah, he's kind of, he does what he looks refreshed, and he does what Clayton does best. And also Fraser Blake Tracy moving back out to left back. I still kind of feel like it's so desperate to have him, in a centre back position because of the nature of his, stick my head in a mangler for 3 points performances. But at the same time, surging down the left hand side, it just reminds me that he was brought in to play at left back. And we've just grown used to him playing as a centre back. But him, Clayton linking up brilliantly on the left. You've got two left footers down the left hand side. We're not sticking square pegs in round holes. No. I thought Brewitt's looked really comfortable alongside Clayton. They've clearly got a really good understanding. Romeo Hutton's done what Romeo Hutton does best: gets forward, puts dangerous balls in the box.
Mate, Romeo Hutton is 10th assist last night as well. He's got the most assists of any defender in the top 4 leagues in England.
Yeah, he's and interestingly, at the start of the season, I was saying that Hutton's left peg looks like it's just for standing on, like when he was being played at left back in pre-season.
Yeah.
And obviously, of late, you've seen him putting the ball with real menace in with his left peg, and it's resulting in goals scored. So it's great for him, isn't it? Right foot, left foot, in out wide positions, whether he's cutting in or beating the fullback on the outside and bending the ball in. He's a threat, isn't he?
Mate, 100%. Like, sorry,
carry on.
No, you go, mate. You go.
I was just gonna say, I think last night was I think that was our first glimpse at Morris ball, if you'd like, and how I think he's been trying to play. We were more, we had a much more higher press on. We looked really fit last night. That's one thing that stood out to me. We looked fit off the ball. Going into challenges, we were a bit more. We had a bit more like oomph about us, but not carelessness. Johnny Williams was, lost the ball, flying into challenges left, right, and centre. But the one thing that I just felt after that game was frustration, because if we can play like that against Bradford, who are fighting and still are fighting for automatic promotion, why couldn't we do it earlier on? Especially against teams like Rochdale.
Yeah, so very true. But then all season, Ellis, I think we have been better against the better teams.
100%.
And I think going into the game last night, in hindsight, obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing. It's easy to kind of like look back and go, yeah, well, of course, we were playing against one of the better sides, but I was still, the nature of our poor run that we've been on, and the lack of confidence around the camp, in the stands, the dwindling attendances and such like, the general flat sentiment that you've got on the socials. I just completely allowed myself to sort of fear the worst. But, it's like anything, isn't it? In football, if you play with better players, you raise your game. If you play against better opposition, you can raise your game. You play against worse opposition, they can drag you down. And I think the fact that Bradford were pretty cavalier, because they had plenty of chances, didn't they? I mean, Solbrin didn't, Solbrin had a busy night. He was dying about his box, had a couple of really smart saves to make. I mean, James over in Florida says, to add the most Swindon-y thing ever, as I mentioned in my introduction, that, the result from last night, James is saying, Johnny, the little Welsh wizard, being the one to score the match-winning goal by running into the box for a bloody header. Yeah, I mean, there was, and it was as well, wasn't it? It was like a combination of sort of towering, diving header. It was just the most bizarre. He's literally just thrown himself at it, hasn't he? What a connection! So, yeah, James.
For some reason, I never understand how a bald footballer managed to properly guide a header, because, I mean, he's got a bit of a sweaty old head, does our Johnny? You think he'd be a bit slidey. I'm much more confident when you've got the likes of like Marouane Fellaini going in with a big lump of hair to really get that added control onto a header. But
no, it doesn't work like that, Joe. Too soft, mate. It's too cushioned.
Is that it? You need pure bone on ball.
Yeah, that's exactly what you need, man. That's exactly what you need. We've had another tweet from Marky Sparky, who said, just tapping into what we've just been talking about and then tying that into obviously matters on the pitch. Talking of previous misdemeanors, we have had plenty of players and playing staff who have done things either morally or criminally wrong, but who are lauded when the team is doing well. As fans, we can't pick and choose who we want to go after. It's a very, very good point, isn't it, Joe and Ellis? You know, there are people have certainly in the last 10 years, and we all know who we're talking about. There has been people that have regularly scored goals for Swindon Town, or have kept clean sheets for Swindon Town, who have found themselves on the wrong side of the law, and have done things that people would rightly be very, very judgmental about. But that's the point that we were making earlier, isn't it? When a team's doing well, these debates tend to be a lot quieter than they are when we're not doing.
I'm going to throw a massive allegedly in right now, but you look at a team like Arsenal, top of the league in the Premier League, millions and millions of fans worldwide. They're loving life. They've got a player playing centre mid for them this season who's currently under investigation for a very serial criminal, offence. You don't hear much about it, do you, from them? I'm just, they're doing well. They're playing well on the pitch. They've got a person representing them who's allegedly done something extremely wrong. But, to them, he's a hero. And ultimately, any football fan, I don't care, what the opinion is. I think if your team's doing well and you've got a player that's maybe done something a little bit naughty and he's doing the job for you, I think, performance and results probably sometimes take over a little bit of... What's the word?
Genuinely,
do you know what I'm getting at?
Like, I could maybe put my... I genuinely listen. I mean, if an allegation has been made against someone and that they're in the throes of an investigation, I genuinely have no idea what you're talking about. But
yeah,
it's. I mean, I don't think we even need to be talking about.
No, I'm just saying we had a certain number 9 up top a few years ago. We'll use an example, who clearly wasn't the best of characters. I had a shirt with him on the back of it. Looking back, I was only maybe 16, so maybe I shouldn't have known much better. But I shouldn't have that shirt of a person with his track record and obviously what he went on to do after as well. I shouldn't own a football shirt with his name on the back. But he was scoring goals for Swindon Town at the time, and to me, he was a hero. And it's like there are morals that go out the window, I think, sometimes with football fans, and I'm more than guilty of it.
But again, we talked about broad churches, Joe. We talk about broad churches. And at the end of the day, there are some people, I've sat in the ground and had people sit next to me talking about people that have, pulled on the Swindon Town shirt, that broken the law, got in serious trouble with the police, and they refuse to chant their name. They refuse to applaud. So it's not everybody. This is the thing. That's your opinion, Joe. You have your opinions. Everyone has their opinions.
Yeah, of course.
There are some people I know that refuse to go in the ground for a season because we signed a certain player. That is their opinion. But I think
I remember that there was some fans that disagree with Paolo Di Canio becoming manager.
Ellis, I don't mind telling you this, right? When Paolo was first employed, much like the conversation we've had tonight with the Trust, I was asked to go on to BBC Radio Wiltshire as the club shirt sponsor, and I got doorstepped about fascist politics. And it's an awful feeling because it was like I wasn't aware that I wasn't going to be doorstepped. Do I agree personally with fascist politics? Absolutely not. But I wasn't aware that I was going to have that posed. And you imagine the pressure that I was suddenly under, being doorstepped about that after my club have just appointed a really high-profile manager, and I'm being asked as somebody that everybody knew was the shirt sponsor at the time how I felt about that. And it is just like, oh my God. And you can't. You're never gonna defend that. And I mean, I played that with the straight bat, which is like, well, do I support that? No. Does my business support that? No. And then it was, the ugly truth is like Swindon Town are going to win lots and lots of games with this guy as football manager. And I think, at the end of the day, if he brings his politics to the fore, then, and it was awful. Like, it truly was a very, very difficult conversation to have. But to your point, that conversation about his politics went very, very, very quiet once we broke that horrible 13-game winless run at the start of the season. And once he was out on the pitch at Oxford swinging a scarf around and things like that, people didn't really care. And when, unfortunately, he lost his parents, there was an outpouring of grief and support for him. And at the end of the season, a party on the pitch, everyone was singing his name. So, yeah, it's Mark makes, going back to Mark's point, and I think we'll draw a line under it here at this stage. But yeah, I'm just going to read that out again. Talking to previous misdemeanors, we've had plenty of players and playing staff who have done things either morally or criminally wrong, but are lauded when the team is doing well. And as fans, we can't pick and choose who we want to go after. Yeah, I think that's a pretty nice way of rounding it off. And I just think at the end of the day, we can't start casting aspersions, pointing fingers and suggesting, that because somebody has a criminal conviction. I mean, Aaron, just going back to your point, you made a point, a very pointed one. You were asking a trust how they feel about somebody that has previous convictions. You didn't use the word previous, but clearly you are talking about previous stuff. And all I would say is that, what are you going to do? You're going to just continue to beat people with that. But then you go on to ask the right question in relation to where were we? Fit and proper persons. So it's all about how you frame it. I just think we need to be very, very fair to people. If people have served their time, you can't continue to to cast aspersions unless you've got something concrete. And at the end of the day, I just see a lot of moralising at the moment. I just think we need to be very careful with that stuff. But getting back to Bradford, yeah, I mean, listen, we're, what a cracking result. I mean, the roar at the end, given that the attendance seemed pretty disappointed, Joe, and Ellis, indeed, the roar at the end was something to behold, and I was only able to listen on a laptop.
Yeah, mate, same. I think, to be fair, I've seen some bits online. Obviously, Ellis was at the game, so he might be able to be in a position to answer this a little bit better than me. But apparently the atmosphere was quite good last night, despite the drop in attendance. I mean, we've needed that. We've needed that for so long, that sort of result. And it wasn't even, you think back to what was our last win, Salford. Salford was obviously a good win away at a decent side. But let's be honest, we scraped that. We absolutely scraped it. Yeah. Last night was a fully deserved win. It was bona fide. It was, it was pure effort and skill. So, yeah, we've needed that. I think Jody Morris has needed that really quite badly.
Well, so I was at the game last night.
Ellis, sit tight, mate, because MST's just DM'd me, and I really want to read these. Because I met MST for the first time on Saturday. What a legend he is. Met him with his boy while I was chowing down on a burger. And MST's tweeted on a couple of fronts, and I think you're going to probably want to chirp in on this, Ellis. So the first one was the energy last night was brilliant. Players were going over to the bench during breaks of play. They were a team at long last. Lots of regular faces in the crowd were missing. Going to be interesting if season ticket holders return for Stevenage off the back of last night. And then he's also layered in, just off the back of what we were just discussing, with moralising around football clubs and whatnot. MST says football clubs have never been and continue not to be examples of integrity. Look at betting firms and sponsorship. Blackburn currently sponsored by a vaping firm. Is that right? I mean, listen, I would add to that, MST, and say, we could get into a big conversation about state-owned football clubs and the moral rights and wrongs. We can get into a big conversation about the morals around the World Cup that's just been had. But yeah, ultimately we're Swindon Town, aren't we? We love our football club. We want it to be white and what transparent and whiter than white. When it's been promised to us that it's going to be transparent, and so then it becomes, like I said earlier, it's a question of expectations, isn't it? Levels of expectations. Sorry, Ellis, you were going to add in. I hope some of what MST said allows you to sort of try.
So like I was saying, I was at the game yesterday. But this is just how I felt, but the whole vibe before the game was quite negative. I feel like a lot of people felt like we were going to get pumped. But as soon as that first whistle went, something seemed to change. And I think a lot of people sort of had a bit of hope. And when, 10, 15 minutes in, when the fans saw that we were defending well, playing good football, I think the atmosphere built a bit. And Bradford had flurries of good pass and play. They didn't look like they troubled us as such. Their main chances were just catching us on the counter attack. But when they had the ball in possession, they didn't trouble us at all. And like that comment said, we looked like a team, and we played well. And that goal really brought a big atmosphere on, considering there wasn't really anything, like, we're not playing for playoffs, are we? So yeah, I think it was a good atmosphere.
I think, to be honest, there were a few things that fed into it that we touched on already, and we touched on earlier in the show. I think the point about it being, I think Tom made the point very eloquently about the fact that it was Bradford, and there is a little bit of needle. I think it's a friendly rivalry, but there is still that little bit of needle that all comes about from the Richie Wellens season, and I think they bought a decent away following. That's always good for atmosphere, isn't it? When you've got 500 odd away fans in the away end, and they really were representing brilliantly, weren't they? They had their own little tifo up in the stand and such like. So I think that was really decent. I think, but no, I mean, I thought Bradford. The thing that really caught my eye was, and I understand that you'll be able to sort of elaborate on this, Ellis, the Andy Cook circumstances in terms of the town end, getting into him and rattling him. There you've got the league's top scorer, free scoring Andy Cook, and we totally nullified him. And again, we've totally nullified him with a centre half combination of Tom Clayton and Brewitt, which I think if you had said to us 3-4 weeks ago, right, we've got Bradford, you're going to play against Cook and you're going to have those two at your centre-backs, you'd be having palpitations, mate, wouldn't you?
Yeah, can I also just say, Hannah's, Brewitt looked really, really good last night.
I think he's better, mate, the last 3-4 weeks. I think I don't know whether it's a question of fitness or what, but,
let's be honest, he's come over from America. He hasn't played in this league before. It wasn't going to happen in 2-3 games. He needed time to not only click into the team, but get his fitness back up, like you said. And I think he was one of our best players last night.
For me, Ellis, it's been his aerial game that's really impressed me last
couple. My dad said the exact same thing to me.
Yeah, headers. He's been, and in a way that I think Tranmere really frustrated the hell out of me, because there was that very, very basic missed header that happened in the build up to their goal. But I think, to be honest with you, he hadn't really impressed me in terms of his aerial prowess. I mean, he's not huge for a centre back, but I just felt that he wasn't winning his fair share of headers. But the last couple of games, I've just felt like he's really, really like imposing himself on strikers, and I don't think there was a missed header last night. So you got to give him credit. And I'll tell you who else really impressed me as well off the bench was Jake Kane. I didn't think I thought Dylan Kadji had a performance that was full of legs, but I'm still not sure where Dylan Kadji's best position is. And when Jake Kane came on, I just felt he was instrumental in lots of the kind of really neat passing triangles. Just seemed to knit things together really nicely. He was like, was looking to get forward, looked to get a couple of shots off. They were wayward, but he was. I thought he looked really neat and tidy as well.
Hepburn Murphy looked good. He was driving the ball forward. There was a couple of times where he sort of probably had one too many touches on the ball, but it will come. It will come. He's so quick on the ball. Wakelin as well had a couple times he had the ball on the left hand side in the first half, and he was class on the ball. We could go through all the players. Blake Tracy was another solid player.
Well, here's a big question for you, Ellis, then. So we talked earlier about Luke Jeffcott, and Jeffcott had a cracking opportunity. For goalkeeper made a fantastic save at the town end when Jeffcott's managed to drive one in. Looked like his arrow top left-hand corner, and the keeper's only 5-6 meters away, and he's managed to tip it over the bar, which I thought was amazing stuff.
Yeah.
But Wimbledon at the weekend, do you reinstate Charlie Austin, or do you stick with Jeffcott off the back of this win?
Oh, Charlie Austin for sure. It's for me, it's a no-brainer. You've only got to look at the stats. Don't get me wrong, Jeffcott played well. He didn't do anything bad. I like Jeffcott. He does well off the ball in terms of drawing players out, the runs that he makes. I think it goes unnoticed, the work that he does off the ball. But I've said it from the start. I think he would work better with, a front two. I don't think he fits the way our style of play. But yeah, Austin. I mean, he's Rochdale, but he scored 4 goals at Rochdale. I think what he brings to this side in terms of experience, which is definitely what we're lacking in this squad. Yeah, Austin for me.
So we've had a little clutch of tweets while you've been talking as well as. So MST's DM to say Town should not have won. My son wore the green shirt. I wore my scarf and bubble hat. Never won. In fact, never drawn a game wearing this get-up. Big smiley face. Yeah, I think there were a few people that said stuff like that, actually, MST, funny enough. Mark's tweeted to say, really enjoyed last night. The intensity of the game was high. We were making sure we won second balls, which we've been lacking all season. We passed the ball through the thirds with zip and purpose and didn't dick about with it at the back. Could see Jody Morris pressing tactic taking shape. Yeah, kind of that's sort of how I felt, Mark, really. It was the zip part of your tweet there that really caught my eye. It was just I felt we're moving the ball with pace and power, and I felt that all of our runs had intent behind them, as opposed to the game sort of in the build-up, and probably even Barrow on Saturday kind of had a feeling of, I don't know, like pre-season, like it was a bunch of players getting used to each other. And James has tweeted to say, did we already talk about how big this match was for Jody, beating his old pal Sparky Mark Hughes? I mean, yeah, it's obviously reuniting after being former colleagues together at Chelsea. I'm sure Jody Morris would have enjoyed that. But I mean, listen, guys, we should probably move on. Have we got anything else really to talk about in relation to Bradford? I mean, obviously we started talking about Wimbledon.
One thing, Hannah's.
Yeah, go on.
The Leyton Orient obviously got promoted. They got guaranteed promotion because we beat Bradford.
Right, so are you ready for this? Right, let's go through it, because Richie's been tweeting about it today, hasn't he? Sort of thanking his old club in Swindon Town for doing the business with Bradford and allowing them to secure promotion. And he said along the lines of a thank you from me, Rob Hunt, Viggs, Jordan. Who else am I missing? And then everyone else started going. I chimed in with, I'm sure Mark Devlin was pretty chuffed as well, which Mark replied to. But then there was also people jumping in going, yeah, hang on, what about Lingy? And it really is like a little bit of a kind of Swindon Town, old boys club down there. But yeah, I mean, so many, good servants to our football club at Leyton Orient. It's wonderful seeing Rob Hunt getting an opportunity to, I mean, it's a shame he's not at Swindon Town anymore, but a little part of me was chuffed to see Rob Hunt get to celebrate promotion from League Two in front of supporters, and get that opportunity. He really, really is one of the good guys. And it's been incredible watching Lawrence Vigouroux. Again, speaking from an ex-goalkeeper's perspective, I always liked Lawrence when he was at Swindon. There were always questions around his kind of mentality and maturity. But certainly this season, I think by a mile, he's going to be the goalkeeper of the division. And I say that as a big fan of Solbryn, obviously, but I don't think there's any debate. Lawrence Vigouroux's record, I think he's got the most clean sheets of in Leyton Orient's history. So we tip our hat to him. Obviously, great to see Jordan Liner's another great guy. Everybody loves Martin Ling, and we always send Martin Ling the best. And the thing that I love, and I said this about very early in my sponsorship days, I became acquainted with Mark Devlin, and he genuinely is as nice as you hope he would be. Like, what a great guy, and really, really forward thinking. And if you were to say to me, think of a chief executive and a football manager that's a marriage made in heaven in terms of uniting a football club, and in terms of its fans, its sponsors, its players, the community that surround it. The notion of Mark Devlin and Richie Wellens working hand in hand with, such a great guy with Martin Ling kind of plugged in, covering off like the football side as well. I believe Martin's still like a technical director type figure there. I mean, that's a great collection of individuals, Joe, isn't it? Mark Devlin, Richie Wellens, Martin Ling, like what a great bunch of people.
Yeah, it's not bad, is it? I think, I'm not going to lie, when Richie put that tweet out, thanking Swindon, it was obviously from Viggs, Hunty, etc. It was a case of someone was cutting onions in the office because for some reason, I know the whole Wellens leaving, going to Salford thing, it's still raw for some people. It was frustrating at the time, but my God, I fucking love that man. Like, genuinely.
I had an instant erection when I saw that tweet.
Well, that's the show going 18 races. Cheers, Ellis. I would agree with the sentiment. Mate, he is the one manager that I really want to see manage Swindon Town again one day. There's nobody else anywhere near it for me. It's a love affair that I think we might be divorced, but there's a flirt still there. There's something in the air still.
Well, I think
I'm happy for him. I'm happy for the football club. They seem like a really nice group of people working at the club. The fans have always been nice.
Yeah.
Nothing against Orient. Fair play.
Hoops and I had this debate on the show on Saturday while I was pitchside, and we were talking about, do we ever think that Richie would come back? And Hoops is of the opinion not. I think just being realistic, like the fact is, with Leyton Orient doing as well as they've done this year, you would imagine that there'll be overtures for Richie further up the leagues, whether that be before the start of the new season or whether that be, at some point next year. I think the only way that I could see him coming back to Swindon in the very, very short term is if Jody Morris enjoys some success or otherwise and doesn't end up at Swindon Swindon Town at some point next year. And if Leyton Orient are tanking and they end up doing what Port Vale have done to Darrell Clark and they show him the door, they hit the panic button and show him the door. And then if that scenario opened up, then I can see it happening. But I think certainly Hoops' opinion, as someone that knows Richie, has worked with him close quarters, is he can't see it happening. And certainly, like I said, I think there'll be a few stars that need to align in order for that to happen. And I mean, I just wish him all I wish him all the very, very best. I think I would like, on a personal level, I would just like to see him continue to succeed, having had a couple of false starts at Salford, and at Doncaster. That, right guy, wrong time, right guy, right club, wrong time. And obviously, like I said, I think he's working with a bunch of characters at Leyton Orient that suit him down to a T. I think we've got, as we've discussed tonight, I think we've got a few things going on behind the scenes at Swindon before we that need to be ironed out before we can start thinking about, bringing other personalities in like Richie to, unite the factions, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
Right, where we at next, guys? We have got where are we? We're up, right? Yeah. So the Rob Angus apology. This was an interesting one, wasn't it? So I'm just gonna try and read it. So basically, for those, because there's been a bit of a clamour that apparently, because this only went out in the matchday programme, that it was a little bit like, Rob, you're preaching to the converted. This needed to be essentially broadcast to a wider audience. But there's a couple of key points in here we should probably touch on. So And I just sort of try and dive into those, because Rob was full of platitudes at the start, welcoming people back to the ground. Obviously, the usual warm welcome to the away fans. And then Rob started talking about to have over 8,500 fans at Swindon for the Mansfield game, and more than 500 travelling to Tranmere on Monday. Given the recent results, what is a testament to the amazing support we've had. And we've certainly been at pains to stress, as all the other fan channels and, official or unofficial, have been lauding. Our support this year has been nothing short of absolutely fantastic. And Rob said thanks, and just wanted to underline that. But then this is the bit that seemed to prick everyone's attention up, when Rob said, "We know that we've got things wrong this season and that you deserve better than the results that we've been delivering. We are listening, though, and we will make changes to ensure recruitment is better. And you have my word that we will put together a budget and a team that is capable of promotion next season, with the right balance of experience and youth. We're currently building on strong foundations following the county ground purchase, coupled with Clem's investment and your fantastic support. I have no doubt this will propel us forwards, but please keep backing Jody and the players between now and the end of the season. This makes a huge difference to us, both on and off the pitch." And then this next quote seemed to sort of incur the ire of certain people, and I'm sure it's going to tonight, but I've got a view on this. It said, "You purchasing match tickets means we can raise revenue to invest in the playing squad, and turning up in your numbers, both home and away, will only ever have a positive effect on the team, despite that search for valuable 3 points continuing. Stick with us and renew your season tickets for next term, as it is your support that will ultimately be crucial in helping us achieve our aims of getting promoted out of League Two and taking this club up the divisions. As always, thank you for all your support." So it's a little bit, my view on this is, it's a little bit like tonight, people jumping on Tom, and some of the responses that Tom gave to some of the questions, where understandably he was a little bit nervous talking about things that may stray him as a volunteer into legal areas, right? Same kind of thing, I think. So again, I wonder whether people have interpreted this, Joe and Ellis, a little bit too literally. So, for example, Rob said there, it makes about, please stay behind, keep backing the players and Jody between now and the end of the season. This makes a huge difference to us, both on the pitch and off it. Obviously, that makes a lot of sense, because on the pitch, we're roaring the players on. Off it, it's helping kind of contribute to a positive mindset around the players, around the coaching staff, which then obviously permeates throughout the club, and everyone seems to be buzzing. Just like at the end of the game when we win, everyone wants to clap the players off the pitch and celebrate it. And this part about purchasing match tickets means that we can raise the revenue to invest in the playing squad. I don't see, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, but I don't see a huge change in narrative there from Clem. Clem's been very, like the club and Clem, and indeed Rob, they've been very consistent with this, haven't they, throughout the season, that, look, we want to get to a sustainable footing. So if we stop buying match tickets, or we stop going to games, or we're not going to buy our season tickets, then there's not going to be as much money in the coffers. That's just a reality, right? But then it was just by using the words here, so at the bottom, stick with us and renew your season tickets for next term, as it is your support that will ultimately be crucial in helping us achieve our aims of getting promoted out of League Two and take this club up the divisions. I've read people sort of taking that absolutely to the nth degree and going, hang on a minute. So you're basically saying, if you don't renew your season tickets and we don't go up, well, that's on you. I'm not quite sure that's the point that he's trying to make there. It's just that, obviously, look, this season hasn't been that great. We're going to do what we can to make things better next year. And fundamentally, look, of course, if we don't renew season tickets, if we've got gates for 6,000 next year, like as a starting point, do we honestly believe that the club are going to be in a position to push for promotion? Now, I'll tell you what, I believe that actually what's more important at the moment is that someone at the club actually, like, we start seeing some action, based around these kind of sentiments before next season starts. So I still think that there's the stuff that the club needs to be doing and showing and messaging that needs to be coming out to the fans to continue to get people to re-engage. But I don't know. I don't understand why people would absolutely ripping into this. I think we all know that Rob's a thoroughly decent guy. He's definitely one of us. He's not just being honest.
Is he? Yeah, mate. I think, to be honest, there's only a certain amount that you can do in terms of, raising morale or inspiring football fans in a written form. I think 95% of it is done in terms of, actual actions, and essentially the proof is in the pudding, isn't it? The proof is on the football pitch. So it's all well and good having the intentions, which I genuinely like. That they're there. The intentions are there. I don't think anyone doubts that. Ultimately, in terms of if we don't buy season tickets, don't go to games, the budget can't be as high as it could potentially be, because ultimately football clubs in League Two, they rely on match tickets and gates to actually pay the bills. That's just the way it is. We haven't got multi-million-pound television deals like you have in the Premier League or even in the Championship. They haven't got to rely on any fans going in the pitch even, because 99% of their money comes from Sky. We haven't got that facility. We've got your, as Jody Morris put it, your local punter going to watch their football team on a Saturday, and that money is vital to the budgets that we set. So it's one of those, isn't it? It goes hand in hand, but ultimately, as you say, there has to be actions. There has to be clear action that football fans can see that is evidently needed for any sort of morale to be boosted. There's only so much you can do in terms of a statement.
Hannah's for me, okay. The sort of key, following on from Joe, the key sort of statements and actions that need to be done that I think would increase season ticket sales and renewals. So obviously, the main one is that we sort of finish this season strong, or stronger than what we have this season. If we perform like we done last night against Bradford, I think that will certainly increase people's interest. Personally, for me, a change in recruitment. I think that's been a big part of our downfall this season. I think recruitment, we haven't got it right, and I don't think the club's not afraid to admit that. I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but Rob Angus said that they've got that area wrong in terms of exiting or seeing out the more experienced players and not replacing them. So
Ellis, I will try and quote. Here we are. So in the latest advisory board notes that Rob will have obviously fed into directly, the club plan as part of their business strategy to recruit a solid mix of youth and experience and play an appropriate style that works. To the point that we were making earlier, a team of technicians playing against one of the better teams in the league that are going to kind of come at you a bit like Bradford did yesterday, because they're going for promotion. They're not just sitting back. They're not just trying to grind the game down. They're not just going to try and win free kicks in dangerous areas and just put high balls into the box and bully our physically sort of smaller squad. Then that's the point, isn't it? They've done better against the better teams.
Exactly. So
what they doing is competing, putting a squad together that's a little bit more like Orient, where they can do a bit of both.
Exactly. So sort of following on from that. So a change in recruitment. So Sandro out essentially. I don't want to be one of those people, but we need a change. And then some key signings, some players in the door, like you said, Hannah's, that have a bit of experience, have a bit of grit about them. Not because we've got a young side, so we need some experience in the door. And I think if we get a couple of those players in fairly early on in the transfer window, I think we'll see a lot more season ticket sales.
Yeah, I think, and a few of those things that in fact, all of those things I agree with you with, Ellis. Look, interestingly, I've heard people saying that they want They want the club. They want some. I've heard in the town end people saying, "I want some sort of apology from the club for just how crap it's been." Well, you've kind of had that. You've had that from Rob Angus, and it's been picked up and it's been pushed around the socials, and the Adver have run it, and so on and such like. So the club have done that. You've had people talking about, right, they want to know what the plan is, you know, and before they start feeling better about next season. Well, like in the latest advisory board notes, you've literally got what we want to be in 2026, and they have got their strategy for what they want to achieve, 5 key areas for that, and then they've actually roadmapped it in terms of how they believe that they're going to get there. So they've come out and done that.
Yeah, let's be honest, they're not hiding from it, Hannah's.
No, but
Rob Angus was on BBC Radio Wiltshire last night, literally stating the facts that we've just said, that we've underachieved. We've had a higher budget than last season, and we haven't performed as well. So to your point, it's not like the club's hiding from it.
Yeah, I just think I just found myself over the last week or so just repeating, well, hang on a minute, what is it exactly that you're asking for that the club hasn't already done? Think of some of the points we've talked about tonight. People have been criticising the fact that, you know, some of the characters that are, you know, are believed to be behind the scenes pulling the strings, you know, their story hasn't been told or whatever, and we've highlighted that. Well, hang on, it actually has. You know, some of the things that you know are being asked of the football club now, it's like, well, hang on a minute, they're making these moves, like they may not be working to everyone's pace, but you can see that some of this stuff is being put out there. But I do think, I mean, it's one thing to put a PowerPoint presentation together. It's another thing to actually be acting on it. I think, as I tweeted 2 or 3 times this week, like, really, for me now, it's about actions. You know, I want to start like seeing tangible change. You know, I want us to start actually, you know, making decisions that to me kind of, you know, sort of make sense. You know, the whole, we talked about recruitment and mistakes being made, haven't we, Ellis? And I mean, you've just talked there about, you know, Sandro going. I think that there have been serious mistakes made in recruitment this season. And obviously that is fundamentally his remit, as he's described to us. You know, that said, how many of the players that were out on the pitch last night are his signings, or has he had a direct input in bringing to the football club? You know, it's a bit like, right, is it really, you know, is it really as bad as everybody says it is? Well, look, fundamentally, what are we? 13th in League Two? Yes. Should a club of our stature be 13th in League Two? No. Were we 13th in League Two before we sold all of our experience? No. Who fundamentally made a decision for us to sell all our experience? Well, whoever that person is, and if that is him, then I'm sorry, but, you know, there's a lot of fans massively disappointed, not wanting to watch League Two football, and we're going to be playing League Two football next season. As a result, we haven't even got a fighting chance of getting out of League Two. Someone's got to take responsibility for that. But we have just beaten Bradford and looked a really very, very decent side with a number of players that he's brought into the club. So just playing devil's advocate. Splinters in the bum, SM1 Insider, to quote you directly.
Yeah, but following on from that, Hannah's, you know, yes, he's brought them in, but we had a much higher budget than last season. We were under a transfer embargo last season. Yeah. You look what we performed with the players that we brought in.
Yeah.
And I mean, Adeloy's apparently one of the highest earners at the club, and he started like 3 games.
Yeah, he's lovely.
So yeah.
Well, look, I mean, you know, listen, you know my thoughts. Like, I, you know, would I have him there next year? No. Interestingly, though, do I know enough about his appointment and his remit behind the scenes for me to be able to sit there and campaign for someone to no longer be in a job? If I'm really, really honest, obviously I have a football opinion. I think someone needs to take responsibility for the football failures at a football club this season. He's responsible for recruiting the managers. Those processes took a very, very, very long time. And Do I feel we suffered as a consequence of that because maybe we didn't give ourselves enough time to bring in somebody that maybe could have brought in a better quality or a more suitable player? Like I said, I've been very, very open about it. I think recruitment this season has been a big issue, and someone has to take responsibility for that. Football is a results business, and it is what it is. So yeah, I mean, what is the solution for next season? I don't want to get, we've had this conversation already, but I just think we need to start making decisions that if the football side of the business is going to be led by Jody in terms of what happens on the pitch next year, then I want Jody to be given a much wider remit akin to what Richie Wellens had at the football club. I want to see the manager of the football club knitting all elements of our club together, similar to what Richie Wellens was doing. I want to see a more cavalier style of football out on the football field, and I want to see us have the rigidity that we had under the likes of Richie Wellens and under the likes of a Paolo Di Canio and under the likes of a Lou Macari, because that's what I've been brought up on. And those teams all had a brilliant blend of youth and experience. That's what I want to see as a paying punter. I'm not sure. I've never been a fan of the whole director of football piece. I've never been a fan of it in relation to British football culture, and I know that an awful lot has changed. But I think it's a little bit like know your division. And the example that I would point to, in terms of someone that's done a fantastic job, where they have just been given the opportunity, and I know their form hasn't been great of late, but I point to Paul Simpson at Carlisle United, who is somebody that knows the club, knows the players, knows the supporters, knows the area, and has been able to come into that football club and create a culture, a very simplified culture, where he's just an old school manager. I'd like to see someone that's got the gravitas of Jody Morris given the same level of profile within our football club. And I'd like to see his remit extended if Jody Morris is the long-term answer at our football club. So there we are. Right, what else have we got to natter about? We've talked about the advisory board minutes, haven't we? Joe, is there much that we've not touched on there in relation to the advisory board minutes that you want to kind of like pick apart? Because the headlines, of course, were that a club strategy is drafted and a plan's been outlined, where we've just been through that. They talked about that the county ground purchase, they're going to start working on key improvement works across the stadium. Swindon Town Women, we've talked a lot with Mandy Coe, who was on earlier. Swindon Town Women, the new head coach, are going to be appointed, and plans are discussed to invest into the team and take them up the leagues. Well, Mandy opened the lid on some of that stuff earlier. We haven't talked about it. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but STFC Museum charity set up and plans are progressing well. They talked about the Community Foundation named EFL League Two Foundation of the Year. And we tip our hats to John Holloway and Shane Hewlett.
That's a really, I'd like to touch on that point, to be fair, Hannah's.
Yeah.
The guys at the foundation do an absolutely superb job. They've run a really well-oiled machine over the last year or so. They've done a lot for the local area in terms of schools, running clubs, after-school clubs, holiday camps. They've opened up the facilities to not only the women's team, but also youth teams and youth clubs around the area that were over winter playing on grass, like local football clubs playing on grass. When that grass was frozen, they were allowed to use the 3G because obviously it was a safer option for children to train on.
Yeah.
The guys at the foundation do a fantastic job, so they fully deserve that award.
And I'll tell you what I really, really love about the foundation. I turned up on Sunday to be greeted by a long-term Swindon Town fan, known to many, many Swindon Town fans. Gary Stanley greeted me at the gate. Hadn't seen Gary for a number of years. But the fact that they're recruiting from within the fan base, and that you've got someone that like Gary, who is absolutely Swindon Town bonkers. It's got all the enthusiasm, all the passion, ticking all the right boxes, lit proper twinkle in his eye. And he just said to me, so proud to be representing the foundation. So, yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I think here's a question for you, though, guys. How do you think people like John Holloway felt when he came into work that morning and saw STFC rotten from top to bottom. How do you think he felt about that?
Yeah, obviously it's not a nice feeling, is it? I think, we probably haven't got to spend too much time on that particular episode. We spoke about it last week.
Yeah,
there are some really good football people and really good football fans of Swindon Town working at that football club, wearing the Swindon Town badge on their chest, and not only wearing it on their chest, but wearing it on their heart as well. As corny as that is,
yeah.
What's the women done? What? Why
Yeah.
are they getting brought into it?
Yeah, no, absolutely right.
Mate,
I mean,
what have the girls behind the Cornish pasty stand done? There are a lot of people at the football club that haven't done anything wrong. It's been shit this season. You can't hide away from that. No one's saying it hasn't been. But we've been in a lot worse places, I think. Anyway, let's not dwell. But
I would
it's
choose your wording very, very carefully, because when you're someone like John Holloway, who's dedicated his absolute life to developing that foundation, as a perfect complement to the football, the main football club across the way there. I think you just got to be very, 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 very careful when you're just firing those broad shots across the bow. Other points that were raised were the Community Foundation's Nigel Eady Centre, the new covered facility, which looks magnificent across the way, is almost complete and it's going to be unveiled on the 5th of May. The Swindon Town Football Club Business Group is progressing well and looking at supporting various initiatives from STFC Museum, the Women's Football Club, the Sensory Room, and ticketing initiatives for the local community, and indeed the supporters Q&As. So, I mean, we were going to go through the supporters Q&As tonight, but we had an opportunity to bring Tom on from the Trust and have a chat, and that's obviously opened up a bit of a can of worms. But we would thoroughly recommend to anyone listening, if you want to know, want to see whether or not the Trust are putting some of these more pointed questions to the football club, have a look at the document that is on the official club's website. Look at the minutes. You can download it as a PDF, read it, and read it offline. Do what you will. But as we said earlier, we're really, really impressed with the level of detail that went into posing those questions. The answers, some people have picked holes. Some people are quite happy with the answers, but I guess you're never going to please anyone when you've got such a broad church. Congratulations to Anton Dworzak. I touched on this on Saturday. He's just signed a 2-year pro deal at the football club. That's exciting, isn't it, Joe? Very, very precocious talent, Anton.
Oh, Mike was off there. Yeah, mate. He's one of the shining lights, I guess, of the season. We've not seen him too much. It's been fleeting. I remember the Barrow away game when he made his debut on that horrendous pitch, and he came on against a rather agricultural side, we'll call them. He held his own, mate. He was really, really good. We've seen him in the Papa John's Trophy. I mean, we've heard from people at the club, youth team coaches. Lee Peacock, for example, has said multiple times this season that he's a real talent. He's a real asset to the football club. It's exciting. It's good to know that there are young lads in our academy that are working their way through, and they're earning contracts at this football club. We're not just letting them go at the end of their contract at 18 to go and play for whoever in the National League, to go and get a deal at someone else in the EFL. We're tying them down. We're proud of them. We've got players like Scott Swine, who scored the winner against Rotherham yesterday in a Premier League bound Burnley side. We do, as a football club, you need to take value in your youth team. You need to give your youth team players, a bit of inspiration and a bit of, oh wait, look, this lad in 2 years above me has earned himself a professional deal. He's playing regular football in the EFL. He's making these big moves. Ultimately, we'd hope that they do. We'd love to be going into the Premier League with these players on our side and doing a bit of a Man United class of 92, but it's not mentally, it's not probable, is it? But you've got these examples of young lads doing well, earning themselves a contract, playing for the first team, and if nothing, it adds a little bit of extra impetus for young players at the football club to want to be the next Anton Dworzak or want to be the next Scott Twine.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting on a few fronts. I mean, obviously, going back to the advisory board notes, key part of their business strategy, smack bang in the middle of it, promote academy players into the first team squad every season. And we've seen it this year. They're putting the money where their mouth is. You know, Abu Kanu looks like a very, very exciting player. Tom Wynne Davis looks like a really, really exciting player. Adam Hart, we saw him in pre-season. What a specimen he is, by the way. And he's been pulling up trees in non-league. And the kid's
Sonny Hart, not his old man.
Sorry, Sonny Hart. And he's only what is he, 17?
He's just 17. Yeah, youngest ever Swindon Town player.
Yeah, you know, you've also got players that are just sort of like slightly younger than those guys, like the likes of Jackson Brown. Really, really impressed in the Wiltshire Shield. So, yeah, listen, I mean, at the end of the day, it's the cliche, isn't it? He's one of our own. Like we want to see these boys like coming through the first team. But the most important thing is, I mean, I remember during the Paolo years when obviously I was a lot closer to the football club. There was always a massive frustration that the youth team players weren't getting a look in. To see the club now actually put it in their business strategy and then declare it to the world that promoting academy players into the first team every season is key. I mean, it speaks volumes, doesn't it? And if I was Lee Peacock and if I was running the academy, that would just fill me full of confidence. And also, crucially, when it comes to tempting better quality young players into our club, when you turn around and you show them that document and go, look, this is the club strategy. Like, if you're an exciting young player, you are going to get opportunities to play football at Swindon Town, professional football at Swindon Town. And you can show like actual living, breathing examples of that. And there's a strategy underpinning it. Well, you know, if we're not going to be losing out on the Theo Walcotts, the Dean Ashtons, the Ben Thatchers of this world as we have previously.
Mate, they're absolutely vital to, as you say, the likes of, you've got Jamie Russell in terms of head of development at the football club.
Yep.
He can sit down with scholars coming out of school and looking for a college route in football and go, this is why you pick Swindon Town Football Club. This is the track record of proven success we've had from our youth team academies. This is what we can, we can provide to you if you work hard enough, if you perform, if you reach potential with our training and coaching and whatever.
Yeah,
they're examples, and they're drawing in new, young lads. Their parents would sit there and be like, yes, I'll pick Swindon Town Football Club over the likes of, I don't know, if you've got a Reading, for example, vying for their signature or their apprenticeship sign up. Swindon Town's attainable. It might be closer to home as well. There are factors at play that are massive. If you can promise the opportunity at least, or the opportunity to attain an opportunity, that it goes a long way.
It certainly does. As does this show, Joe. As does this show. 9 o'clock seems like a very long time ago now, doesn't it? When we welcomed the wonderful Mandy Coe, Swindon Town's new head of women's football, onto the show, and hit her with a battery of your silly questions and some more serious questions about the future of women's football. And then we've got into all kinds of crafty jazz after we were offered the opportunity of Tom Parrish from STFC Trust to come on and talk about the questionnaire that is going to be doing the rounds this weekend in relation to ideas and developments that they want to hear from you, the supporters, in relation to the future of the football club and the stadium development of the football club. So keep an eye out for that. And if you want to be part of it, and you're interested as to know how you can do that, we'll go about buying your £19.69 or £19.69 voting share. And you can do that by going to votingshare.com, buying your voting share, and making sure that you share your thoughts with the Supporters Trust. The Trust were also at pains just to stress, if there are any pointed questions, some of which were fielded tonight via the Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge that we put to the Trust directly, that you guys have put to us, then please do make sure that you share them with the Trust, because all of those questions do get asked. They can't obviously guarantee the answers, but they do get asked. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, from a Sir Tom Broadbent Lounge point of view, guys, listen, are we perfect? No. But can I just point out, we're not paid to do this. We've just sat here for the last 3 hours talking passionately about Swindon Town because we love it. You might not like what we do. You might not agree with what we do, or how we do it, but we do it because we love it. We're volunteers just like everybody else. I would ask everyone to just sort of make sure that you remember that when you're sharpening your knives before plunging them in. And to my point as well, sorry if I sound like an old fogey, but all I would say is this: like I said, take responsibility for your content. And if you've got some spiky questions that you want to ask yourself why you're doing it from behind the veil of anonymity. You know, if you want to step up and get answers to questions, you want to ask questions. Well, actually, it's very easy to criticize other people for not asking the question in the way that you would like it asked. But ask yourself this: if you put your name, your address, your telephone number, made yourself imminently reachable to the kind of people that you want to ask those questions to, would you ask that question? Would you really? I don't know. Maybe you would. Anyway, we are the St Tom Broadbent Lounge. We're an independent Swindon Town fan Twitter space. As such, our views do not represent those of Swindon Town Football Club or Sir Tom Broadbent himself. It's been an absolute treat looking after you for 3 hours and 4 minutes now. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Season's nearly there, isn't it? And thanks to what happened last night, I think we're all pretty much looking forward to what the end of the season looks like. Best of luck to everyone visiting my hometown on Saturday. And if by some miracle I can make it to Wimbledon, I look forward to down in a jar or two with you all there. In the meantime, my thanks to Joe. Joe, thank you ever so much, pal.
Thank you very much, mate. Thanks for having us on.
No, it's been an absolute treat. And thank you, Ellis.
My pleasure, as always, Hannah's.
Marvellous, mate. I'll catch up with you very soon. And my thanks to Tom Paris, as I said, from STFC Trust. My thanks to Mandy Coe from Swindon Town Women's Football Club. And my thanks to Johnny Williams for proving that a bald head really does power the ball home far better than a cushioned header that the likes of a Barrow and Fellaini with those magnificent follicles offers you. We are the St Tom Broadbent Lounge. Come on, you Reds. Take good care of yourselves.